And we are live. What is good, everybody? Welcome into episode 17 of Catch and Counter. As always, I got my guy Nibs with me, and then we have Dakota with us as well. Dakota, the official namesake of the show. You know, you came up with it, so we
Yes,
always
sir.
appreciate you coming on. Anyone for ITR coming on. So, fellas, how we doing? What's going on? We weren't here last week, but we're back better than ever. And boy, do we got a lot to talk about today. That's for sure.
Yeah, we do, man. Glad to be with you guys this week for sure. I've been off air for a little bit, but hyped to be back.
You goddamn right we got a lot to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Shit. Y'all two been busy, first off. And then these fights. These sons of bitches making me out a fucking liar. All right, let's go.
Well, we all got a little bit some of that. We'll touch on any fights that we missed recently. We'll get to that.
Is it
at the end.
really episode 17 though, you guys? That's crazy.
It is. It is wild. I almost didn't believe it until I checked, but I did see it is 17. So, like I said, we'll get into the fights later on that we might have missed. But first of all, we got to get into these fights that we got this weekend. We got especially tomorrow in Saudi. There was a lot of talk, especially this summertime, about like a Saudi card. It almost seemed more like fancy than did reality. Like it always sounds good, but these cards never kind of end up happening. But dog, do we have one coming up? We got co-main event, Deontay Wilder, Joseph Parker. Main event, Anthony Joshua, Otto Wallin. Hopefully, if they both win, they can fight each other. But first of all, we got to see them both get past their guys on Saturday nights. And those are not easy fights.
Both
I do
win,
think.
they can fight each other.
So,
First of all-
Nibs, I'll go to you first. But what do you think about? We got Deontay Wilder, Joseph Parker. What's your thoughts on that matchup, and how excited are you to see the Bronze Bomber back in the ring? You know, it's been a little bit. He's only fought one round in about 3.5 years, but Bomb Squad is back in action tomorrow.
Yeah, man. And I'm excited as shit. You know why I'm excited as shit? You know what? I love you too, man. Mr. I don't take shots. But it's the fact that a lot of dudes after they got their ass whipped like he did against Fury would have probably just called it a career, bro. And he's not coming back and fighting bums, right? Like he had his litmus test. Okay, the right hand still works. Now he's fighting a legit dude. Yeah, Joseph Parker lost to Joe Joyce. There's no shame in that. You know what I'm saying? Now he's coming back and he's fighting a guy who was a legit world champ. You know what I'm saying? He's got some legit wins on his ledger, and he could give just about anybody some problems. You know what I'm saying? So I like that he's fighting a real dude. He's not just coming back and saying, "Hey, let me fight." He could fight Jared Anderson because it's a bigger name, right? And get the big money and all this other stuff. But Jared Anderson ain't ready. We all know how that turns out, right? He's fighting a legit dude. I'm with it, man. I mean, you know, but it's a dangerous enough a fight for us to go, well, shit, don't fuck this up because we still want to see you. You know what I'm saying? In Saudi, we want to see you fighting. The fight we all want to see. You know what I'm saying? We've been waiting for this shit, and I can't wait to see that because I think he's gonna knock my boy's head off. You know what I'm saying? So I'm with all the smoke, baby. I think Wilder wins this fight in like 3 rounds, bro. And it's gonna be some highlight real shit. You know what I mean? That right hand, Joseph Parker can say whatever the fuck he wants to about, you know, Wilder having to worry about what he throwing. Nah, bro. Nah, bro. You look, that's another thing too. People don't give him his respect. Wilder got a chin, bro. He's been hit by some hellacious shit. And outside of
He's also been knocked out brutally now. And
this is true.
You know what I mean? So I think that is worth noting that he's always shown a chin, but he's also now he's been knocked out. And the second fight, he got stopped real bad. I like this matchup a lot, but when I look at this entire card and this fight included, it's just a lot of A side, B side, and there's a lot of fighters that I would like to see fighting each other that aren't. So there's this thing of just the whole card is kind of testing fate. Can we make these fights bigger? Can we make these fights bigger? And like it doesn't make any sense to me who it's benefiting for Frank Sanchez and Filip Hrgovic to be on the same card and not fight each other and fight guys that we know they're both going to beat. You know what I mean? Like, so that it feels like that the whole card is kind of suffering from that, and yet there is still some risk in taking on a guy like Joseph Parker, who's been way more active in the last couple of years. Wilder don't fight anymore, bro. You know what I mean? We don't know what he's got right now. I know he's got a right hand, but I don't know what kind of chin he has anymore. So I think they're playing with fate a little bit.
Yeah, I see what you're saying with that. I think for Hergovich, I think because he's the IBF mandatory, he was kind of only going to take, not that he wouldn't have taken another fight, but I think they're taking him. They want to get him a fight, but not kind of risk losing that mandatory spot. So I kind of see why that, not that I'm saying it should be that way, but I think that's why it's kind of played out that way. But I do like this Wilder and Parker fight, just like we'll talk about the Joshua fight, where I think Wilder wins. He should win. I'm with Nibs. I think he does get a knockout probably between rounds 1 and 6 and 7, somewhere in there. But it is interesting just because we haven't seen, does the inactivity catch up to him? He's fought 1 round in, I think, 3 years. And Parker, even though he was stopped by Joyce, he's then fought, I think, 2 or 3 times since then. So he's been pretty active in there too. But for Wilder, I think it just comes down to the right hand. I think he gets a lot of shit for not being skilled, so to speak. But I do think landing that right hand is a skill, and it's a very underrated skill that he has of being able to land that. But you also need the timing for that. So being out of the ring, does that affect his timing in there? And I think he probably does get it eventually. Does that make it be a few rounds later than it should have been just because he's been out for so long? Not sure yet. But I just think that he'll
wind up in a physical fight, fight to dominate, even if you win. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the thing, because Parker is, I guess he's in the Fury camp. He does train with him, so he's probably going to try to do the same thing Fury did with keeping Wilder on the back foot, but he's not as physically imposing and big as strong as Fury. So I wonder, and he's probably not quick, and he's still a quick heavyweight, but I don't think he's as quick as he was or as quick as Fury is with his feet, so it might be harder for him. And I think when he tries to implement that and go inside, I think Wilder's going to catch him and he's going to give him an early nap at some point. But it's a very interesting fight, and it's a risky fight too. I think it could be Parker will have some success early on, but I think the minute he tries to dial it up a bit, they're talking about he wants to try to knock Wilder out. The minute he tries to dial it up a little too much, he's going to regret that, I think. And I think that's going to be the difference in this one at some point in the mid rounds.
Jack, you just said it, bro. Mm-hmm. Parker is not Fury, period. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's 6'3", he's 6'4", he's much smaller.
And to implement Fury's game plan against Wilder, you have to be Fury. Let's be clear, or at least his size, right? You can't come in there and be smaller than Deontay Wilder and try to impose anything. You know what I mean? Other than some boxing skill. I do think Joseph Parker's he's got more boxing acumen than Wilder does, but we've seen this story before, bro. Mm-hmm. And I take offense to people who say, well, the right hand isn't a skill. Look, let me tell you something. We all love a bevy of sports. If you're a football team and I tell you before the game starts, I'm going to run to the left all game. You know what I'm saying? Now stop it. And if you don't, then that's still a skill, right? Mm-hmm. I'm telling you you know what's coming. Deontay Wilder is going to throw that right motherfucking hand. It's up to you to stop that shit. And everybody not named Fury has not been able to stop it. And he's even put him on his ass. So look, you can say it's not a skill, but it's a whole bunch of motherfuckers getting themselves off the canvas that'll tell you it ain't, that it is. So
and there's a whole lot of people with power that aren't that accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's what it is for me. It's the accuracy and the timing behind it.
That second fight with was it Ortiz, right?
Mm-hmm.
He had a split second to land that right, literally a split second to land that right hand, and he landed it exactly where he needed to get the stoppage, bro. There's not many guys, you got to be a sharpshooter with that bitch. Man, I just don't think Parker's got a big enough chin. I think Wilder's got a better chin than Parker does, comparative to what's coming at them. You feel me? Like, I think Parker is a great guy. I think, to be honest with you, if Parker were fighting Joshua, I might say that's a 50-50 fight.
Because they had a competitive fight when they already fought before too. I mean, Joshua won, but right. Parker had his moments and frustrated him in there too.
Right. I think that's a closer fight than Wilder, just because Wilder does have that fucking eraser. We can call it what you want to, but Joseph Parker's going to be picking his chin up off the ground.
Yeah, the underrated thing about Wilder too is that range finding jab that he uses, and some people will say, yeah, it's a lazy jab though. Well, a lot of lazy jabs, you'd think, oh, if someone's throwing a lazy jab, you counter it over the top. But you better be sure to think twice about counter. If Wilder's sticking that rangefinder out there, you can't just commit right away to it either, because you know he's loading up the right hand. So he uses that jab in a way I think it gets very underrated too. And I think he's going to Parker boxes well from the outside, but I think he knows from the outside it's just Wilder's a taller and longer guy. I think he knows he can't do that, but I think he's going to try to come on the inside. But I think that range finding little stick jab to set up the right hand is going to be what does it. And I think that's probably the most underrated part of Wilder's game, because he gets a lot of shit for having a lazy jab. But it's like, well, a guy like him with the firepower, with the right hand coming back, you're not going to counter over it. So you got to be, so like the jab at the end of the day, just it does its job. I don't think he gets enough credit for that sometimes either. And the dude is an Olympic bronze medalist. I mean, I think that speaks for itself.
I think
he's not Floyd or Pernell Whitaker, but come on now.
I think that's the point of this fight, is they want to put him in with somebody credible that's a legit opponent that people recognize. But it's also kind of about like, what is Deontay Wilder going to do moving forward? Is he going to be an active fighter? Is he looking to what's the goal and the game plan for him? Because like we touched on, he's fought one round in 2.5 years, in almost 2.5 years. So it's a little tricky for me to still take you seriously as an active fighter if that's how often you're fighting. So I think we're figuring out what exactly he wants to do.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's rumors for now. Apparently, someone said it was signed. Eddie Hearn saying it's not signed, but they are looking to do if they both win, which they got to both win. But AJ and Wilder, a 2-fight deal next year. The first fight being like the springtime, the second fight being probably like the fall time or something like that. So I think that would be more along the lines of what you'd want to see, is if this isn't just a one-off, this sets up some more fights and more activity. And I think, hey, with the Saudi money, the bags they're throwing around right now, they can keep a lot of these guys active, I think. So that's my hope, that I think we do get to see him in the ring more next year too.
The problem I have with 2-fight deals is well, there's a couple of things, but it kind of ties things up, right? So, you know, the winner is automatically contractually obligated to fight the loser a second time, right? It's kind of like Bud and Spence. A lot of people give Bud shit for not fighting again this year. Well, he can't. He's contractually bound to fight Spence next, because Spence said, yeah, I want to do it again, right? The thing I have with the 2-fight deals is now, let's say, just for argument's sake, if Joshua wins, you know, Fury wins his next fight, now they can't make that happen. You know, if Wilder wins and Usyk wins his next fight, then they can't make that. You know what I'm saying? So now you have to fight these guys again. And both of these dudes hit really fucking hard. So, you know, it's possible at the end of these 2 fights, they could be 1-1. Now we got to have a fucking trilogy. And
I think to add on to that too, I think if we're talking about of all the fights that are really tempting fate on this card, it is Wallin and Anthony Joshua, because I think though there hasn't been as much of Wallin, the couple of times that I've seen him, particularly the Fury fight and the Dominic Brazil fight, he's a really smart, competent guy who can box. He can bang if he needs to. Super versatile, and I just think like reliable, which sometimes Joshua is not particularly reliable. He's talented. He hits hard. He's just like a star. We're in the UK, but he's not particularly reliable. I think Wallin is super reliable, and I think that's really the fight where it's like you got to give it to AJ for not taking there's a lot of heavyweights he can have taken for this fight to be in this position, and he's taken a tough one.
That's a fact. Like Handflow Boxing Review thinks along the same way as you. Bean saying what we're saying. Them signing a fight before they fight is kind of a big drink. So they haven't signed it yet. They've alluded to the fight. I mean, shoot, bro. We think these guys are in tough fights anyways. We didn't think Fury was going to be in a tough fight with Ngannou. We thought the Usyk fight was going to happen in December. We saw how that shit played out. So these guys are in much tougher fights. I think they realized they're not going to sleep on Parker and Wallin like Fury did in Ghana, but we already saw this kind of play out, and these guys are in with legit top 10 level heavyweights as well. So I think that's a point to consider also. And we got Hybrid in the building too. Shout out to you, Hybrid, as always.
Thanks for fucking with us, catching counter. So, bro, I gotta let's play devil's advocate, right? Let's say Wallin fucking beats Joshua, which is a plausible thing that can happen. We're not throwing shit against the wall, bro. This is something that can legitimately happen. If he wins, then how does that change the landscape here? Then what do we do? You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
I think that's also going to be kind of the answer on what Deontay Wilder wants to do with his career, because if the big money fight with Joshua is not available, is he down to just fight the best guy of the moment? Which, you know what I mean? And I don't know that he is. I think if he was, he already would have been back in the ring by now. So I think that Joshua's performed, because I think Parker's a great fighter. He's going to get caught at some point. This is the fight that really holds up the big check for everybody. And aside from Joshua, what if Frank Sanchez looks spectacular? What if Hrgovic looks spectacular? You know what I mean? What if Jarrell Miller looks spectacular? Does Deontay Wilder have an interest in making other interesting heavyweight fights that aren't money fights?
Yeah, and like I said, hey, I think if we got the Saudi behind them, I think any of those fights could turn into money fights too. So I think that plays a big factor until we talk about these guys wanting these big purses and they haven't been there. Well, if Saudi's getting in the mix, those purses are all of a sudden going to be there. So maybe it's not a sustainable business model in the long term, but a guy like Wilder who only has a few more fights left, he'll be able to capitalize, I think, and get a big bag.
And by the way,
even if it's not against Joshua.
I gotta say, I agree with hybrid. What Joshua Wilder should happen years ago is what happens when we marinate fights. You're right, and that's what I'm saying. This whole card is trying to marinate something that, you could burn the dish now, bro, and then we're not eating. Like sometimes you don't marinate shit anymore.
No, that's a fact.
But I do think that Jack's got a point though. I think that the Saudi money makes a lot of these fights happen that we wouldn't get, right? I don't think we were going to get Joshua Wilder because the money wasn't there.
But Nibs, how many more times you want to watch a elite level fight at 12:30 in the afternoon? Like that's what we get when we get these fights.
Hey, if they give me the fights I want, I'll take it. I see you. It's not ideal, but if they're gonna give me big fights, I'll take it.
Look, I woke up for Inoue. You know what I mean? Like I'm waking up for Inoue at 3:00 in the fucking morning on Tuesday, and the reason I'm doing that is because he's fucking Inoue. I get it. We all want the prime time slots. You know what I'm saying? But the money, these guys still got to get paid. If Saudi is saying, "Hey, we'll pay you guys to fight each other this much," and you go to whoever's going to be out there now, PBC, whoever the big ESPN, and like, "Hey, this is what they're offering. Can you match it?" Of course, they're not going to.
A big hell to the no. Yeah.
Yeah, like I told Felix on the shop, hey, look, bro, if some Saudi dude came in here and offered me $10 million right now to fight anybody on ITR, look, butt naked in some Jello, let's go. You know what I'm talking about? It's happening because money talks, bro. It gets you to fight the people you might not necessarily want to fight. I bet you if Wilder had his pick, he wouldn't be fighting Parker right now, bro. Same thing with Joshua, he wouldn't be fighting Marlon, but somebody comes in and says, "We'll give you this much." Sign the contract, bro.
Yeah, that's a fact. The last thing that I'll say on this fight too is that Wilder weighed in at 213. We see Bean talking about, because we'll get into Big Baby Miller, Dubois, and the undercard fights in a bit too. But Wilder weighed in at 213, and to me, that's the perfect weight for him. That's the weight he was, I think, earlier in his career. The first Fury fight, I think he was 212. So that's the catch a body weight that he's always talked about, in that 212 to 220 range. So I think that is perfect weight. I don't think Parker is going to be able to he's bigger, but I don't think he's going to be able to use the size to his advantage. And also, I think they have some history as sparring partners too. And I think Parker's better than Helenius. We already saw how Wilder dealt with the guy that he was familiar with in the gym with Helenius, and he was able to get him out of there with the first real punch he threw too. So I see Parker lasting a little longer, but I do think that the experience in the gym helps Wilder's side, because I think for Parker, even in sparring, you're never going to be able to fully replicate getting hit with that power with 10-ounce gloves and no headgear on. But I think Wilder can benefit more from the sparring, just because getting the timing down and the tendencies and some of those things from Parker also.
Yeah, I think that it's crazy, right? Because when you think heavyweights, you think the bigger the better. In Deontay Wilder's case, I think that the more in shape he is, the better his fight is. Like whatever that weight is, like you said, whether it's between that 212 to 220 range, the better shape he's in, the better he's going to be in. So if he's in 212, tells me he's in phenomenal shape right now, right? He's not trying to pack on pounds to take on a heavier guy. He's doing what Deontay Wilder does. And I think that's his best chance at winning, because you see how much more snap his and speed he has when he's fighting and his regular size, right? I mean, shit, Brazil found out real quick. Speed kills, So I think that's the best weight for him. I don't think he needs to bulk up. I know people have been saying he does, but I think that is the best weight for him.
Yeah, because I think he'll carry it better in the later rounds too. I think we saw he still carried it against Fury, but you saw him just his legs gave out so much earlier because you're carrying that extra 25 pounds of muscle, and he had to do that against Fury, I think, to a point. But you're going to see, I think he's going to going back to the old Wilder from the opening bell to the last bell in round 12. I think he'll be just as dangerous, and I think that, like we've all said, at some point, probably somewhere in the mid rounds, but at some point he's going to catch Joseph Parker.
Yeah.
So I think, Dakota, do you have any picks or rounds or anything for this fight? So if I had to say, I'll say, because we kind of give a round. So I'd say maybe rounds 5 or 6 if I had to guess for this fight. If you had to throw some rounds in there for when Deontay gets it done, what would you have to say?
I don't know, because I think that Parker's got a little bit more finesse, a little more defense than Helenius. So I think that he'll be able to kind of do his thing for a little. I think the 7th or 8th Wilder will catch him. I think somewhere in there. I think it's going to take. I think Parker will win the first 5, 6 rounds, and Wilder will, at some point, figure it out.
Yeah, Nibs. I forget if you said a round before, but you kind of in that same. Actually, you said it was 3 or 4, something like that, right? Okay, there we go. So we know Nibs has been on the hot streak. So if you guys are looking to bet Wilder round 4, there you go. He probably just won you a little bit of money. So take him up on that. So he'll take tips on that too, by the way, all those kind of things. So. We got Felix coming in here. No Wilder slander today, Felix, but it's okay. We'll let it slide. But I'm not with the Wilder slander.
Hey, listen,
on this one, so.
But here's the thing, bro. Who brought up the 40 pounds of gear?
No, exactly.
Nobody else brought it up. He was like, "No, my costume was heavy."
Yeah, no, that was me messing with Felix.
Hey, I'll say this though, bro. That was the dumbest shit on his part. Like,
come on, dude.
Because I do think it does. I do think it affected him, but. What the fuck were you thinking wearing a 50-pound piece of gear to the ring, bro?
And then expecting people would sympathize with you when you say it. Like, yeah, I dressed like a crow for the biggest fight of my career, and my legs hurt.
It wasn't like that was a short ring walk either. Like that was a long ass ring,
like a quarter mile, bro. He was like a quarter mile.
But, I mean, I'd have been tired as fuck. I was tired as fuck watching him do it. You know what I'm saying?
That was like my walk to my store in town. You know what I mean? Like on the store on my block. That's how far you have to walk.
Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous. Like, but it's crazy because you do that and then you get in there and you use it as an excuse. Okay, whatever. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, Dakota's right. Yeah, you don't bring it up. You let you tell somebody in your camp to bring it up. Shit, you know.
Yeah. And hey, the good thing is I know Wilder. I think he's got something planned special for this walk-up, but I think hopefully he's learned his lesson on that one, so he won't be going that much overboard. He'll have something cool. Hopefully it's nothing too heavy to weigh him down or anything like that. But we touched on it a bit before, but now we'll officially move on to, I guess you call it the main event. They're calling them both co-main events, but it's the last fight, so it is the main event. Anthony Joshua versus Otto Wallin. So this ain't my dog watch pick of the week, but I had to sit and think about it earlier this week. If I wanted to make it my pick or not, I looked at a few other fights, and there's an undercard fight that I like even more for this one. But I think AJ gets it done, but I think it's a very intriguing fight stylistically for some of the things we brought up. So, Nibs, I'll go to you first on this one. Do you think Anthony Joshua is going to win this fight? How does he win this fight? And what do you think about just the stylistic matchup against Otto Wallin? Because like the Wilder fight, it's a fight that these guys both are favored to win, but with the big super fight looming, I think it's definitely a questionable kind of fight for these guys to take, because it's not a fight that he could look great in either.
I want him to win. I want him to win so I can see him fight Joshua or Wilder. I'm sorry. So I want Joshua to win, but I'm telling you, man, the more and more you think about it, Otto Wallin's got a really good ass fucking chance of upsetting apple cart here. I think people are kind of just glancing over this dude. I'm telling you, if he doesn't get robbed, going to the judges, right? I think he's got a chance of, boxing the shit out of Joshua. But I'm gonna pick Joshua to win, but I don't think it's gonna be in as a spectacular fashion as people would like. I think it'll go 12 rounds and he'll get a split decision.
I honestly, I think Wallin is going to win. I know that all of the politics are ultimately going to move in AJ's favor for this fight, but I do think that Wallin is kind of an underappreciated, underrated guy at heavyweight right now. I don't think a lot of guys could have the kind of performance he had against Fury. We've seen, I mean, I know that it doesn't age well with the Ngannou fight, but there's a lot of guys at heavyweight that wouldn't be able to have that kind of a fight with Fury. So I think Wallin's going to win the fight. I think that I always give Joshua credit as a competitor, but I just think as a boxer, he's not reliable. I think Wallin's pretty reliable, and I just think he's going to win it, man.
Yeah, so I can see that. And I'm going to give, because I was feeling a lot of those same things early in this week, and I sat back. I watched a bit more. I watched Joshua's fights with Usyk again, and I'll kind of give you guys why I wonder if I'm almost too confident in AJ, because now earlier this week, I was thinking exactly the same way you were, Dakota. Some of the things you were saying, Dibs, about it, kind of a close decision, but I'm pretty confident AJ is going to win this fight now. I just think that, first of all, he does look locked in this week. Some people can say it's out of character, but I do think that sometimes he's been the nice guy, AJ, and I think he realizes this can go two ways, though. I think he realizes how important this moment is. Now, does he overthink it once he gets in the ring against a frustrating style? That could happen too. But I think that the two Usyk fights for him were the best thing that could have prepared him for this Otto Wallin fight, because we all think Usyk's a great fighter. I think Joshua was the guy who used to be overrated, I think, by a lot of people, but I think he might be becoming slightly underrated also, because even that second Usyk fight, Usyk won the fight, but that was a very competitive fight. Even when I went back to watch it, I had it 7-5, and Joshua had a bunch of moments, and Usyk needed to take the last 3 rounds to win that fight too. That was a fight where Joshua was able to work the body well, and he was able to make Usyk uncomfortable and do a lot of things in there. And I just think that Otto Wallin is someone who I've always rated pretty highly.
This fucking guy, huh?
There we go.
Yeah. Awesome.
But I was saying Usyk's a great fighter. Otto Wallin is a very good fighter too. I just don't think he's at Usyk's level. So I think for all of AJ's shortcomings, and I think he's been overhyped before, I don't think he gets enough credit for, especially the way he looked in that second Usyk fight. And I think if he's able to retain that form and go in 24 rounds with Usyk, I think he should be able to deal with Otto Wallin.
By the way, I think AJ has gotten to a point where the wins and losses don't mean as much as they might for another guy. So he can win it without winning it, and he can lose it without losing it, right? He could lose a tough decision that's a fucking banger where he really shows up and they both have the fight of their careers, or he could, win a decision that he doesn't deserve and that he doesn't look good, and the decision sours the night. So he, like I say, he could win without winning, he could lose without losing. I think it's really just what kind of performance he has. Ultimately, he would lose out on the fight with Wilder. But I think that it's more so for Joshua at this point about what kind of performances is he having.
I kind of feel like this is what's going to happen. I feel like Wallin's going to win the fight, but lose the scores. So, he's going to win. We're all going to be watching and going, that dude, he won the fight. But I think Joshua's going to be in it just enough, right? To the like you said, to the judges to be able to give him, okay, we can slide this one off without too many people being pissed off about it.
And we all know that's true. I'm at the point where I'm so frustrated with that part of boxing that I can't go there until we're getting the decisions read. You know what I mean? Like I can't. It gets me too pissed off to go in expecting. So if I'm thinking about what kind of fight is going to play out, I think that Wallin is going to win more rounds than Joshua wins. I don't know if that's going to translate to an on-paper win, but that's how I think the fight's going to go.
Yeah, so you guys are doubting my boy AJ, and that's okay. But I guess we'll see next week how it plays out. But let me kind of
AJ too, bro.
No, 100%. No, I feel like I know both you guys don't mess with you guys, but with this fight too, I'll throw one more point out there why I think AJ should be able to win, and I think win decisively, not a shout out or anything, but win a fight that we think he all won. Is going back to just the Usyk points of he fought Usyk, who I think is the A+ version of an Otto Wallin. Like if Otto Wallin was maxed all the way out, that would be Usyk, and he was already competitive with him. I look at Otto Wallin, and he's had good performances against the Fury, but we have seen, as you said, Fury be hot and cold. We saw a guy like Francis Ngannou, and that was him being as cold can be. We saw what Ngannou was able to do, so we know Fury's kind of up and down. And even in his last fight, I saw his last fight against Murat Gassiev. And Gassiev, another one of those very underrated, good fighters, tough guy. But in that fight too, Otto Wallin, he started good in that fight early, but kind of in the Fury fight too, he kind of faded late a bit too. So I could see that being a thing where I see him having good success for like 2, 3, 4 rounds. But I think if AJ was able to land body shots on Usyk, I think he should be able to do it against Otto Wallin too. So I think as the rounds go on and as Wallin starts to fade, I think we see either an AJ decision or we see even a late stoppage TKO at some point. We got a few more people in the chat. We got Gail in the chat. Shout out to you, Gail. Fellow writer at NY Fights. I know I've done a few articles there. She does great work on there too. So we appreciate you as always being showing respect to the hat for Nibs and saying just like Oscar and Felix Sturm.
Old Saint Nibs, bro.
Yeah. And then Nibs, what you think about this? You and Pops Kelly, you guys normally agree, but he's going against you here. So I don't know about that one. It makes me feel a little more confident. When you guys are both against me, I don't feel as confident, but I'll take it on this one. He's rocking with me. We disagree sometimes, but he's with me on this one, so I appreciate that for sure.
I feel like this is nepotism. This is what it is. I feel like he did this to me the last time out. And my last name ain't Kelly, so I really can't complain. But no, man, look, and let me be very clear. I want AJ to win this fight. I want him to win this fight for a lot of reasons. One, I am a fan of his. I give him a lot of shit, but the reason I give him a lot of shit is because I am a fan, and I think he can be something that he just isn't yet. Or I don't know if he ever will be. But I think he's got it, bro. Like you know what I'm talking about, Dakota. You've seen it before. Guys just got a shitload of talent, and you're like, you should be better than that.
Yep.
And he's not.
And look, he's not Audley Harrison, but he's not Lennox Lewis. So it's trying to figure out where in that spectrum is he.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But he could be Lennox Lewis. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, man. I think he's got a world of talent. But I do think that Otto Wallin, I've picked Joshua to win this fight by split decision. Will he deserve it is a whole different conversation, right? I think Otto Wallin, this is his Super Bowl. He's going to show out. So Joshua can't take, I hope that he's not taking him for granted. I hope he's not overlooking him going, okay, let me just get past this guy and then I'll get to the big money fight. Because he's in some trouble.
I think that it's also worth saying for the entirety of this card, like, Joshua and Wilder is the big, exciting fight that we've all kind of been asking for the last 5 years. But I think as fans, whoever the guys are at the top, and at the moment those are Joshua and Wilder, at this present moment, they're two of the guys at the top. We just have to demand that they fight the best guys. If it's each other, if it's Frank Sanchez, if it's Hrgovic, if it's Zhilei Zhang, whoever that is, that's who they should be fighting. You know what I mean? And I think that that's ultimately what we want to get out of this card.
Don't nobody want that big bang smoke, bro. After what he did to Joe Joyce twice, don't nobody want that smoke, bro.
Nope. Especially not from a 40-year-old.
No way. So like you guys said, I hope that these fights are going to be able to hope we get these big fights. And I do think that Wilder and AJ win. I do think we get that fight next year. Let's pray to the boxing gods that it does happen. As you guys said, when we kind of do these things, we're, like Dakota said, we're basically tempting them to say, okay, we've had a good year, but could you guys mess some things up for us at the end of the year? So we're going to hope that doesn't happen. We got our guy Lukey in the building too.
Yes, sir.
We got no self-doubt, no gun shy, willing to take the hardest hit and keep coming back for more. He said, shout out to Nibs and Jack, only a shout out to Dakota, but that's okay. I guess you guys can hash that out on your Sunday show for sure.
Yeah,
but,
it is what it is, bro. He knows I'm Scottie Pippen, you know.
Yeah. Let's see what he said. He said, can we have a deep convo on this Day of Reckoning card? Is a good fighter and semi-interesting fights. I think that's exactly what you guys had said before. I think that's kind of what it is. We'll get into the undercard in a second, but it's kind of like they're giving us a taste of like that this is a great card. I think it is a great card, but it's like it's a great card, but you could also say, oh, this guy's a 20-1 favorite. This guy's a 50-1 favorite. I think someone did it on Twitter. I think that the average odds was like 15-1 on the whole card.
Yeah, this fight is like it's almost like a little tasting menu. You know what I mean? Like there's no full course meals on this card, really, but there's some good appetizers. There's some good bites on there, but there's nothing that's really satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I'll take this card over a lot of the bullshit that got passed along this year. Like you said, right? There were a lot of interesting fights on this card. A lot of, and we talked about this before, Jack. We've watched some cards where literally it was the main event and everything else was just kind of like, uh, you know, whatever. I like all these fights, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? And again, like you said, yeah. I mean, it's not Joshua Wilder. You know, we're not getting the big joints. But I'm watching all of these fights for the first time. I'm gonna watch every single one of these motherfuckers. Like, I'm not skipping. Oh, I'll turn it on when the co-main and the main get on.
Yeah,
I'm
you don't
gonna
have
watch.
my guy Frank. Come on, Frank.
I know Dakota's a big Frank Sanchez guy, so I don't know if he'll appreciate that. But no, I see what
I get that he's not, he's not the most exciting. I'm just saying, if you put him up against any of these guys, he's right there.
Yeah. And hey, I think that's our problem too, is that we know that, and the things we haven't seen him in against those guys. So the matchmaking him is allowing him to be that kind of dull guy who people forget about too. And I think that's the problem. That's kind of what Luke was speaking to too, that we have a great heavyweight. He just hasn't been since a Jogba. Efe is the one who's actually gained momentum since that fight more than Frank does. And Frank beat him damn near every round in that fight.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got some food in front of him. I mean, Junior Five, he's a decent guy, but let's be real clear, he about to get that work. You know what I mean? He's about to get that work, bro. Like, I mean, this is about to be bad for him. The
best case scenario for him is he gets absolutely stunk out. That's the best case scenario.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing he can hope for is a Hail Mary, haymaker lands. You know what I mean? Because he's got some power on him, but that's really all he's got. He's got a hope and a prayer, bro. And yeah, and it's 100 degrees and he's a snowball. Like, let's go, come on.
Yeah, and if you're looking to land at a Hail Mary shot, you don't want to be fighting a guy like Frank Sanchez either, because he's one of the last guys that'll give you that Hail Mary shot. But we got that fight on the card. This is probably the worst mismatch on the card. We have Filip Hrgovic against Mark Demori. I don't know if you guys have seen Mark Demori before, but he's fought anytime he stepped. I think he fought David Haye, was stopped very early a few years ago. So he's picked up some wins since then. But I think the over/under in that fight is like 2.5 rounds. So I think that speaks more to what we're saying about these fights. But we also have the other ones are more intriguing fights. We have Daniel Dubois, Big Baby Miller, which for me, that's the toughest fight for me to pick on the card. So we'll get into that one too. We got Jai Opetaia, who I think is the best cruiserweight in the world, the guy who's got some pound for pound skill to him. Just got to kind of build his name a bit more in against Ellis Zorro. And then we have Dimitri Bivol in against Lyndon Arthur. So I'll go to you, Dakota, on this one. What of those undercards intrigue you, and who are you most excited to see on this undercard? Because even if it's not the fights we want to see, for an undercard, it's still pretty damn good to get some of these guys who are the best guys in their weight class, even if they're not fighting the guys that we want.
The one that I'm personally the most invested in is seeing Dimitri Bivol, because he's fighter of the year in 2022, and he doesn't get to fight at all this year until essentially the last major card of the year. It's not the best opponent. It's not a terrible opponent, but it's not an opponent that's worthy of the kinds of fights that he should be getting. The problem at the moment for Bivol is there's not a lot of great fights for him at light heavyweight. So it's going to be a matter of, if he can't get the winner of Beterbiev versus Smith in the ring, can he get one of these star fighters from 168 to come up and fight him at 175, or is he willing to drop down? So I'm interested to see Dimitri Bivol, because I think that he's one of the best fighters on the planet. I still got him number 2 on my list. I think you keep what you kill, and no one's taken it from him yet. And I think he's a very special talent. Hopefully, we're able to see him fight the winner of Beterbiev Smith. I think we all kind of think that's going to be Beterbiev, and that's the fight I'm more interested in anyway. The only thing I'll say, though, Dimitri Bivol is a main event fighter, bro. I mean, to put that man on anybody's undercard for anything, I think is very disrespectful, honestly. I mean,
and I guess, yeah, and going back to the Saudi bag, I think he probably feels the way too when you throw him a certain amount of M's his way. He's like, what, kind of like Wilder or these other guys, like, what? I'll be the 4th fight in the bill if you're giving me X amount of millions too. So do you have any worries, though, about Bivol? I mean, we all expect him to win, but we've seen him go up and down in certain fights, kind of fight the level of his opposition with the inactivity I think a lot of people are looking to see if he can stop Lyndon Arthur, which I think there's a possibility of that if he's sharp. But are you worried about him not just not looking sharp and kind of having the flat performances we've seen him have, especially before the Canelo fight, or you think he's going to be ready to go?
I think even if he has one of those, he wins 12-0.
Yeah, and I think he'll win 12-0 anyways, but I think for the casual people that want to see him do more, are you worried that he might, in their eyes, because we can appreciate the pure boxing anyways, do you think they might be looking for more out of the performance than we might get, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I wouldn't expect the most like scintillating performance for him. He's not in the main event, so the pressure's off. He hasn't fought in a little over a year, but I don't get a sense that he takes a lot of long breaks or whatever. So it may not be the most electrifying performance of his career, but I don't know that he has an electrifying opponent in front of him. And I think with his style sort of requires that.
Yeah. So Nibs, what do you think about Dimitri Bivol in this fight? Are you excited to see him back? How do you think he's going to win this fight? Or are you more just looking forward to seeing him fight probably better Biev if he's able to get past Callum Smith?
I could give two shits about Bivol. And the reason I say that is because I think he took the biggest opportunity he had in his career, and he flushed it down the toilet and shitted on it. I think, when you try to dictate terms to the guy, right? I don't give a fuck if you beat him before. It doesn't matter, bro. Like, this is a business. Get your emotions out the way. You know what I mean? What it should be and what it is are two totally different things. I remember a judge told me that one time. He said, if you want fair, go get a pig. Look, you have to understand where you're at in the pecking order of the business, not just the pecking order of the division, right? Yeah, you've got all the talent in the motherfucking world, but you could have been a superstar and you fucked that up. I had to Google Lyndon Arthur. I didn't know anything about this guy. I had to watch one of his fights on YouTube. He's food for Bivol. Let's be real clear.
Mm-hmm.
This is a guy with a decent record who's got some skills. He'll probably hang around for a little bit, make it look interesting for like a couple of rounds, and then Bivol will just do what Bivol does. So I'm not necessarily super excited about the fight. I am glad to see Bivol back in the ring. You know what I mean? I am a fan of his boxing wise, but I'm not super excited about him. For that reason, he needs somebody else in his team to run his shit because they fucked up a serious amount of bag.
Yeah, Bean's kind of saying the same thing that you saying. Just if he doesn't try to control this Canelo rematch, he's not in this kind of situation. That's what you guys have been saying for a long time too.
But to be fair, also, when I interviewed Eddie Hearn, he said that the issue ultimately was that they both wanted opposite things.
The weight classes.
Canelo wanted to rematch him at 175 because that's where he lost to him, and Bivol wanted to fight him at 168 because he wanted the belts. So they were at an impasse there.
Yeah, I think a guy like Bivol, he's just in interviews and stuff he's seen. I don't think he's as concerned with the money wise. Do I think he makes enough money where he's okay? He's not someone who's out there searching for, like we're saying,
priority.
Yeah. And is it the best business decision for him? Like Nibs is saying, no, it wasn't. He probably should have said, okay, I'll take the fight at 175. But I think he really looks at it as, well, if I'm going to fight at 175, I want to fight better, BF. If I'm fighting you again, I want to fight for your belts. I want to have something to stand around with, even if it did backfire for him in the end, 100%.
Yawn. Look, and I get it. I get that. I completely understand that's what he was doing, right? But okay, let's be real clear. Outside of us, outside of the people who love the sport of boxing, who gives a shit about Bivol versus Arthur? Nobody.
Who even knows this? They don't even know what's happening, honestly. A lot of people still don't even know who
in
he
Eastern Europe it's a big fight, but it's not as big of a fight here. But I don't think that's their fault. I think that there's a lot of reasons for that. I think American boxing audiences only have patience for like one kind of style, and that's the Mickey Ward style. And so when somebody does something a little different, a lot of our audience tunes out. They're not interested in the sweet science of it. There was a lot of American fans that didn't like Bernard Hopkins because he was boring. So I think, you know what I mean? I think that there's reasons for that.
And anybody who thinks Bernard Hopkins is boring needs to get shot in the fucking head. Bernard Hopkins, boring. Get the fuck, man. Okay, see, look, I can't. I would not be able to have that conversation with a casual fan. If somebody told me that Bernard Hopkins was boring, look, okay,
I'm
you
just
know what?
making the point. I'm just making, and that's my favorite. That's probably my
But
favorite.
you're right, though. I get it. You're right. People think that.
And
it
by the
sucks.
way, if you play them the fight with Winky Wright, they might have a point. Like he's got some fucking snooze moments, and and Bivol does as well. I'm just saying, I don't think Bivol not being famous the way Tank Davis is Bivol's fault. You know,
I see that.
There are a lot of people who thought Floyd was boring too, and he took boring to the bank. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
is Bivol needs to take boring to the bank. You know what I mean? And he's not. That's the thing I have against him right now. I know that the fights weren't 100% not his fault for getting made. I mean, I still don't understand what the fuck the WBC's problem is, because they are holding something against Bivol, but they're not holding it against Beterbiev when neither one of them are in the place that you should be holding.
In theory, they're doing it because Beterbiev lives in Canada.
Yeah.
So he's no longer a Russian citizen.
And Bivol lives in Indio, California now, which is the interesting part of it, which is why that's the hypocrisy part of it.
If you're gonna hold it against Bivol, okay, why aren't you holding it against fucking Beterbiev then? Or you just don't want them to fight each other because they're Russians? You know what I mean? Like, shut the fuck up, bro. Like, neither one of them, and I believe, get me right if I'm wrong, neither one of them has said what's going on is a good thing, right? Like neither one of them has said, yeah, we side with the Russians for this war.
Yeah.
Nobody said that shit. So why are we even having that fucking discussion? So yeah, I get it. That wasn't his fault. I get the whole weight thing with Canelo, but I'm here to tell you, if Canelo says I want to fight you at 175, you fight that man at 175 and shut the fuck up.
Yeah. So we got up from Gail right here. She said Beterbiev is a Canadian citizen. Bivol is still technically a Russian national, and though he lives in St. Petersburg, a lot of the so I guess that could be, like we say, even if we don't agree, I guess that's what the WBC is going with. And we know the WBC, they'll switch up. If a Saudi bag gets thrown at them, I wouldn't doubt if they change their mind and go back and sanction the fight at the end of the day. But the last undercard fight I want to talk about is this one, like Gail said right here. I hate that I love it, but I love this fight too, honestly. Big Baby Miller.
Oh, man.
Big Baby Miller is the kind of guy that he's everything that's wrong with boxing. I mean, you test positive for as many banned substances as you can, and you're getting rewarded with a huge paycheck in the Saudi fight. But this fight really does intrigue me, and he is my official dog watch pick of the weekend for an underdog to get an upset. I know the odds have closed way in. Big Baby Miller was like a 5-1 underdog. He's now like a 2.5-1 underdog, and he's 100-pound difference almost from Dubois. So I think it's an interesting fight. I think it's going to be fun for as long as it lasts. Neither guy has the biggest gas tank in the world, so I do think it'll be for as long as it lasts, and we do get a stoppage at some point. But I think Big Baby Miller is more than live in this fight. Not that it's the best thing for the sport for him to win. I mean, I want to see Dubois win, but I do think Big Baby Miller's got a good shot. So Nibs, I know none of us are the biggest Big Baby Miller fans, but are you looking forward to this fight at all, or what's your thoughts on this matchup?
Nah, you know my stance, bro. If you're juicing, I don't fuck with you. That's just the way it is. And he's been a proven cheater. What, 3-4 fucking times already? Why are we even entertaining this dude? I don't give a fuck how great of a fighter you are. If you cheat, I don't fuck with you. You know what I'm saying? And that's just the way it is. I didn't fuck with Mark. I still don't fuck with Margarito. You know what I mean? Look, if you cheat, I can't fuck with you. That's just the way it is. But if if I'm being tasked to ask who do I think will win this fight, I think Big Baby Miller knocks him out. Dubois' chin, I mean, you got knocked out by Usyk, bro. Like, come on, bro. Like, I think if Dubois can get his shit off, like if he can box him a little bit in the first couple of rounds, I think the first 2 rounds will tell us everything we need to know. If he can get his shit off in the first couple of rounds, he should be able to, get Miller out of there. But I think Miller's just too big. He's just gonna walk through him and put him on his ass.
I have very limited interest in Big Baby Miller. I know that the big personality, the fact that he's just a really big guy, he's very athletic for a guy his size. There's a lot of things to like, but like you said, Nebs, bro, it's like you cross that line multiple times. It's just a level of disrespect for the sport where it's like I can't be excited that you're getting that opportunity.
Yeah, but
Yeah, bro. I mean, I tell people all the time, bro. I stopped fucking with Shane Mosley, and I love that dude.
Right.
He got caught juicing. Like, I don't give a fuck who you are, bro. If somebody had proof that Floyd Mayweather had juiced his whole life, his whole career, I'd be like, man, fuck y'all, I'm out of here. I just don't. I don't get it, man. Mm-mm.
Yeah, and then even one thing for this fight, because we'll move on after. But what do you? Yeah, you want to touch on?
I was
that
just gonna say that's the other thing. There seems like there's guys in boxing that get no chances, and then there's guys who have infinite chances. Guys like Broner, guys like Big Baby Miller, and I think that when you see how many fighters do everything, they do things the right way, and they never get rewarded for that. To see somebody like Miller just over and over again, you know what I'm saying? Getting forgiven,
Yeah, but even for this fight, I see a lot of people worried about Big Baby Miller being 333 and wondering about him gassing. But I mean, he's probably not at his best at 333. And we'll get to Lukey's question in a second, Dakota. But I think I got a feeling on what you're going to say on that one, too. But Dubois is not the most durable guy either. And I actually think that the longer the fight goes, the more it actually favors Big Baby Miller. I think even in the Lucas Brown fight, he was huge, and Lucas Brown's way past his best too. But he was throwing bombs in that fight, consistently throwing bombs, letting his hands go. So I think that the longer the fight goes, a lot of people would think it wouldn't favor Big Baby Miller. I actually think it probably would favor him the longer the fight goes. But what do we got on this one, Dakota? Let us know. I think this one should be an easy one, but I guess we never know. So what do you say?
I mean, that's easy. That's Big Baby Miller, of course. Isaac Dogbay definitely does kind of rub me the wrong way sometimes, Bub. But at the end of the day, he's not out here cheating the sport. He's taking tough fights. I can't hate him for that. It's just, like I said, there are guys and girls in this sport who seem to get infinite numbers of chances, and then people who get none. One thing goes wrong, one thing goes sideways, they disappear forever. Yeah. Well, that's the other elephant in the room, right, Bub? Is who's looking at those things when we do these fights in the Middle East?
I'm not sure if anybody knows too, but Gail or if anybody else knows is there. I don't know if there would be VADA or what commission it would be, but I haven't seen anything about the drug test. You'd assume that Dubois and his camp would make sure that there is something set, but Saudi with the commissions, it's wishy-washy sometimes. So we're not exactly sure on that one. But before we move on to the Inoue fight, I know Luke, he had comments up here before. Where is it? Like about the outfits of the press conference. Does anybody have any comments on that? I haven't been able to see too much of it, but he had some thoughts on the outfits of the press conference. We're not really press conference guys, not that we watch it. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Otherwise, he might be a little upset that we don't. But
let's keep it schminging, bro. Let's keep it schminging.
There we go. So we're moving on now to, I put it in the title of this video, hoping this brings us some views, because this name normally brings us some views, but
it seems like it is, bro.
Yep, no, for sure. It's definitely getting there. But we got Naoya Inoue fighting on Tuesday against Marlon Tapales, looking to be undisputed again, basically 2 undisputed fights in a year. He fought Paul Butler in December of last year. Fought our guy, Cool Boy Steph, won that fight much easier than any of us would have thought, and now he's looking to fight Tapales. So I'm guessing we all expect Inoue to win. He is right up there with Crawford. I think they're almost a 1A, 1B pound for pound, at least in everybody's top 3 or 5 pound for pound. Definitely in the running for fighter of the year. So, Nibs, what are your thoughts on Inoue's fight against Marlon Tapales? I know it's going to be early. I think the ring walks at 6 a.m. my time. So, was that 3 or 4 a.m. your time? But you said I think you're going to be up for it. So, what are your thoughts just on it? It takes a special fighter to get you up at that time. So, to speak on a guy Inoue and what we got coming up on Tuesday.
Look here, brother. There's plenty of big bottom women that ain't got me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm waking my ass up to fight, to watch Inoue fight. So that'll tell you everything you need to know right there. Look, Inoue to me is special, bro. I think that not only when you just look at it, the eye test, I mean, what he did to Cool Boy Steph, that shit is, I mean, come on, man. Like that's like some artistic type shit. It's like, yo, man, this dude is like a Picasso in there, the way he's putting on. And he's putting on against the best. It's not like, you know what I mean? He's got what? I think all but 3 of his fights are title fights. You know what I'm saying? So far, he's doing it against the best. And in my opinion, if he wins this fight in spectacular fashion, which I think he will, he's fighter of the year. I don't you beat the guy at a new weight class, right? Then you unify said weight class on your next fight. Ring it up. Go ahead and ring it up. And I'm being very clear when I say this. I don't think there's anyone in or around his division that gives him any problems. Period.
I mean, he may encounter some level of resistance if he moves up to featherweight, but I don't think he's going to get it from Tapales. And that's not a statement on Tapales. We just saw MJ Akhmadaliev last week look spectacular. And this guy is coming off a win over that guy. Marlon Tapales is a real legitimate champion. He's 37-3. He's been in the game for a minute. And this would be one of the better wins of Inoue's career. I think he's going to do it easy because he's just in a different stratosphere at the moment. I think for me, I still keep him at 4 pound for pound, not because of the talent, but I feel like he doesn't have the same amount of kind of legacy type fights as a Terrence Crawford or as Canelo. But I think talent wise, it's getting tough to dispute like who's better than this guy right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
And I would say to counter that point, do you think that, because I do have him number 2, I have him above Canelo and Bivol and those other guys. Do you think part of that is just because it's the lower weight classes, and especially over here, we're not as familiar with the guys, and if he was at a higher weight, because I think he's like 22-0 with 19 knockouts in title fights. So do you think if the weight classes were different and we were aware of more of the guys, it would be different, or are you just speaking on the big names?
I actually don't, and I'll use Pacquiao as the example because Pacquiao, there were so many interesting fighters in that weight neighborhood at the time that, you know, by the time he beat Barrera was an all-timer. By the time he got in with Marquez already had a leg. So all these guys already had a certain type of legacy that Pacquiao was taking with him. And I'm not sure that Inoue's had too many of those kinds of fights yet. Some of that's just the era, but I think that some of that may come when he moves to featherweight. If he gets in with somebody like a Navarrete or I'm not sure who that would be exactly, but that for me that's what's missing to put him at the top.
Right. Yep, and those are fair, and I think that it is crazy because you look at a guy like he fought Manny Rodriguez and he knocked him out in the 2nd or 3rd round, and now Manny Rodriguez might be the best guy at 118 now that he's left. So I think you do see it said even if he doesn't have those Hall of Fame, he hasn't beaten those Hall of Fame type guys. Even with Tapales is a very, very good fighter, legit unified champ. The MJ fight was really close, and no matter what, even so, he was competitive with MJ Akhmadaliev, who we just saw, who he was my dog watch pick for last week, Kevin Gonzalez. It didn't turn out that way. MJ was on fire. So Tapales it's going to be another example of, I think, Tapales is a really good fighter. He's just in with a really great fighter. I think we'll see the levels in different. I think
it's also not to say that Inoue doesn't have any of those. Like, right, he's got the Donaire fights, he's got the Fulton fights. But if I'm comfortable now moving him into that all-time kind of conversation. So once I'm comparing him to those guys, I don't think he's there yet, but I'm comfortable putting him in that conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My question is what does he have to do to get there, in your opinion?
I think that he has to fight an opponent that has some sort of sustained level of greatness that's in their prime. And I just don't know that he's done that yet. As great as the Donaire fights were, Donaire was pushing 40. Again, I think Tapales is a fantastic fighter, but there's no contemporaries. And some of that is just because he's so much better than everybody else. And I think some of those wins will age well. But I think the more interesting opponents are at featherweight.
I can see that. And even it's crazy because you look back and he beat like the I don't want to butcher the first name, but Taguchi, the guy who became a unified champion. That was his 4th fight, and he fought him. So he has some of those wins that have aged pretty well. The Rodriguez win is going to continue to age well too. So I think maybe those guys are still coming where he's already beat those guys, but they're going to continue. Even like Maloney, not a Hall of Fame guy, but those guys have all became world champions after he beat them, and he made them look like they were just average guys.
Yeah, I mean, I have to respectfully disagree, but with Dakota, and the only reason I say that is this: if you take Inoue and all of his skills and you put him in a different weight class, tell me who beats him, and then we can have a conversation.
Maybe,
I think you know what I'm saying. I think if you put him in any other weight class with his abilities as they are, right, and put him in there as a natural person in that weight class, there's really no one in any of those divisions that beat him. And then you could take, again, 1 through 5 in your top 10, right, pound for pound. If they were the same weight class, Inoue beats them, I think. I mean, Bud, with what he did to Spence, now I kind of have to maybe, but the Bud fight is a little bit tougher than I think. But I think even he beats Canelo. You know what I'm saying? Because of his acumen. I think he smokes any heavyweight. You know what I'm saying? Period. So for me, and he's done it again at the highest level in different weight classes. For me, pound for pound is when you move up and you do it easily. Okay, you know what I'm saying? It's the same reason I have Serrano as my number 2 in the women's. You know what I mean? Because she's done it in 7 fucking weight classes.
Yep.
Like you earn it, right? And I think Inoue has earned it at this point for all the greatness I give Canelo. He tried it and he lost. Inoue, I think when Inoue tries it, he's going to win. I think that's what the difference is. But we'll find out because, to be honest with you, I mean, when you look at it, I just don't see anybody beating that brother. I mean, that's a cold motherfucker, man. That's a cold motherfucker.
Yeah. And even for me, I don't think for Inoue, the fight that we've always talked about is Robesi and him. I thought would have been the good fight that we could have seen maybe some resistance. We just saw a huge upset, which we could touch on that later real quick too. But now I don't think Inoue, he has a chance of losing until he gets to at least 130 now. Luis Alberto Lopez, I think, is a really, really good fighter, but I just think some of the flaws in his game and the way he leaves, some of the creative things he's able to do, I don't think he's able to do that.
I think those are the kinds of fights, though, Jack, that it would take for me to start putting him in the Pacquiao Mayweather conversation, because with somebody like Lopez, now for several years we've been watching him win on the B side and do incredible things. As great as Fulton is, I don't have like a highlight reel of him in my mind the way I do with somebody like Lopez, who is a very accomplished champion. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I could say it. And I just think for me, as good as those guys are, I think if you talk about maybe like the winner of my guy Abraham Nova or Shackley Foster or a Navarrete or those guys, I think that's where, and he'd have a good chance of beating those guys too. I just think that's maybe when we get to the spot. This is when I got to check that out, Dave. I saw Felix just said that, but that is where I think the limitations could maybe catch up to him. Maybe they still don't. He might just be that great too. But I think it is crazy to say that a guy who started at 108, I'm almost talking like bypassing 126. And I think that speaks to the pound for pound level of greatness he is. And I'm talking about skipping over, would that be his 5th weight class, which is just, that speaks to how good he is at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, real talk. Let's speak to that. Like when he beats Tapales, which we all expect him to do it, right? He does that. What's to keep him at 126? I mean, he could move up to 130 after that. Like that could be his next shit. Like, I mean, when you think about it, he moved up there to get these bigger fights, right? So he does that, and he's already done it. So you beat Cool Boy Steph, you beat Tapales, you unify the division. There's maybe an MJ fight, or he gets maybe 1 or 2 other fights in that division that are kind of like, yeah, let's see what you do with these guys. But I think it's more of the same. So then, you can unify this division and move up. If he does that after the Tapales fight, who do you think his next fight at 130 should be? Should he immediately jump into
I think he will fight at 126.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even if it's less interesting, I just think that he'll do that.
Yeah, I think he'll fight at 26. And also, I think that now this isn't the fight I'm dying to see, but I do think that the fight they would make for next year, he would stay at 122. And I think Luis Neri would be the fight that they're making.
I
I think
love
they've
that
already made talks about that, and I really like that fight too. That's it's a fight I think Inoue wins. But talk about a fight that we said earlier for as good as long as it lasts. That fight will be as good for as long as it lasts. And I think that Neri, for all the kind of, I think he had a slip up with weight before or something like that too. But after the Hovhannissian fight he had earlier this year, talk about a great fight. And I want Inoue to keep moving up in weight. But hey, if there's one fight we could stay and have him make, I mean, he's going to beat Neri, but that would be a hell of a fight for as long.
That's just an exciting, explosive opponent. Like I would love to see Inoue in with somebody with that much charisma and athleticism. You know what I mean? Because it's only going to add to, and because I think Inoue wins that fight easily, but I think it's somebody who does hit very hard, who has a really broad skill set, and who's been around.
We want that. Because we're boxing fans.
Yeah.
The casuals want that jump to 130. And I don't.
You'd like to see just Inoue Navarrete next or something, Inoue Conceição.
Not me, but everybody else. Yeah. And let's face it, he's at that point in his career where big money fights is what he needs to be fighting anyway. Let's be real clear. He's already. He could never fight again, and I think he's in the Hall of Fame. You know what I'm saying? So now it's go get the bag. Is there a bigger bag at 126 or 130? I think it's 130, bro. And so I'm not saying he should jump 126. I think he should fight at 126. I'm with you. What I'm saying is I think there's a very plausible chance he goes to 130 because the much bigger money is there. And if you have, and there are some guys at 126 that may give you some issues. Why even deal with that when you can just jump right up to the 130 mix? And let's be real clear. At 130, there's maybe two guys I can see having a chance. You know what I mean? Like, let's be real clear. I mean, would he be taking that big of a chance moving up to 130 as opposed to making the stop at 126 is all I'm saying.
I think for 26, I think just the natural move up in weight he's going to want to do. I think that even Top Ranks position themselves where they have Luis Alberto Lopez as a champion. They even got the rights for the Obatek and Ray Ford fight, which I know that's going to be on the Luis Alberto undercard. So they have those two champions. So I think their plan is they want Inoue to move up, and those are two possible opponents for him at 126. We already know Top Rank controls most of the landscape at 132. So I think, especially with them in the plans also, I think, and as Gail says there, if Neri has a problem, if he's banned from fighting in Japan, that could throw a wrench in those plans too. I saw that was just a rumor. I didn't know how much was to that, but Top Rank does obviously, they co-promote Inoue with Japan. So I think they're controlling the landscape where they probably do want to get him at these two fights at 126 and then fights at 130 after that also.
He needs to go to 130. Get that.
We go.
What's the fight you want to see, Nibs? Who at 130? What's the one that gets you excited? Because there are more options there, but I also think once you move up, that's like where guys start getting a little bigger too.
To be honest with you, just because of the audacity of it, anybody. You can give me any of the champions at 130. And I know that's kind of a cop-out, but it's not, because the audacity of the fact that this guy, who used to be this weight, now he's moving up. I mean, bro, that's a huge ass fucking jump. Let's be real clear. People don't understand. Yeah, it's 122 to 130. There's levels to this shit for a reason. We say that shit all the time.
And 122 was already his fourth weight class, too. So we'd be talking about his sixth weight class. This dude started at 108. It's not like he was a natural one. He's built in. He's now a natural 122, but he wasn't always.
And we've seen guys fail at this, right? When Rigo fought Lomachenko, he moved up from 122 to 130, and it didn't go well. So, and he was the.
I think Rigo waited too long. He was too longer too. Yeah. And that's kind of by design, because Cuban fighters usually end up, being a little bit too grown by the time they start making their money, right? I think if Rigo had done that earlier in his career, much more successful. Because Rigo is another just supernaturally talented guy, right? But Inoue is different. That dude, he has the perfect nickname. That dude is the fucking monster. Like, I don't and I'm not saying this for hyperbole. I'm not saying this to ride his dick or nothing like that. I legitimately feel Inoue could go to 130 right now and beat any of the champions, bro. Hands down. And that's not a knock on them. It's the fact that he's that much better.
No,
But you could literally give me any or all of them, and I'm taking it. I'm watching it.
Who are the champs on 130? There's Navarrete, there's Cordina,
Foster,
Foster, and there's
Lamont Roach now. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'll answer just because we want to give people answers. My fan pick would be Shaq because I love that kid. I love him.
Hey, and we'll see how long he's going to even be a champ for. Remember, he's got a fight coming up in February, so that's a big if because remember now he's in a real fight coming up. We should be talking about Abraham Nova. We should be talking about Abraham Nova in that spot.
If he beats Nova and then gets a fight with Inoue, bro, come on, that's big. That's big time right there. I'm gonna write. I'm a reserve. But let's say he's still a champ if Inoue jumps up to 130. Yeah, because I'm a fan, but Navarrete, bro. Because me personally, I just feel because I feel again, Navarrete is another guy. He's earned it the hard way. You know what I'm saying? You can say whatever the fuck you want to about him. He's fighting the guys people don't want to fight. You know what I mean? And he's proven several times over he lets his nuts hang. Like he will go out there and fight until his jaw's off. Like you know what I mean? Like he's not a paper champion. So for me, if Inoue were to come up and beat Navarrete, if he's not number one on everybody's list after that, then I can't respect what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we got Hybrid saying, do we think he could fight Tank at 130? I don't think we'll see Tank at 130, but I think that would be where I think we see the cap of, hey, who even knows? To me, I think that's when we would see the cap of the weight being too much. Even like I would love to see Lomachenko in a way. I think that's a fantastic fight too. I think those guys might be where you start to see the ceiling of just the weight classes and being, I think, too small at that point. But hey, if you could ever end up making it, I think it's a bit unrealistic. I'm a Tank fan. I'd rather see Tank look at some of those other guys, but hey, we'll see what happens.
I mean, the fact that Tank was even having a conversation about fighting Colbert, But look, if I think it is too much because not just because talent. I think in a way, I'll be honest with you, I'm gonna go out here on a limb and say I think in a way is more talented than Tank is, which is saying something.
Yeah.
But I would say that Tank is just too big. Like Tank walks around 150. You know what I'm saying? He walks around 150. He gets down to 135. You know what I'm saying? He might even be a little bit heavier than that walking around. But he walks around, most people know, about 145, 150 in between camps. Inoue is nowhere near that. He's a very small guy. You know what I mean? I think that would be too big a jump. I think 130 is where he should max out. I don't know if he can carry up to 135. I don't know if I would need to see a lot of him at 130 before I could say, hey, move up to 135. And I think by the time he gets to 135, I don't think Tank would be there anyway. So
yeah, but I think that would come down to the matchups too. Like maybe if a vacant title opens up against a guy that they think's a favorable matchup, maybe. But I think that would clearly be the cap. And if the fact that we're even talking about, like I said, him even potentially fighting on 135 is crazy enough in its own right, and that just speaks to how special he is. Can't wait to see him fight Tuesday morning. It's going to be early for us. We're going to make sure we watch it, but. Now, quickly, we're going to go over. We were off last week, so we missed a few fights for these just because we do our thing. We try to go quick, but then it ends up kind of drawing out because we have good conversation. We'll kind of each go by and give each points, and if we have a counter or anything, we can continue to move on. But the first one is my guy, Devin Haney. I thought he would win. I did not think he would make it look the way he did against Regis Prograis. Devin Haney's got a lot of haters out there. A lot of his haters, they were probably punching air during that fight. Almost as much air as Regis Prograis was punching during that fight. Regis Prograis landed 36 punches, which broke the CompuBox record for the least amount in the title fight. And the most impressive part for me in that was that Devin stayed in the pocket for that too. He was doing a lot of power boxing in there. Bill Haney was saying that they were going to go in there, try to knock him out, and Regis was going to be the one backing up. And I don't think a lot of people believe that, but it ended up being true. At the end of the day, Devin looked much stronger, much healthier at 140. And Regis just, we've talked about before, Dakota and Nips, both Regis just didn't have the feet to keep up. He was always 1 step, 2, even 3 steps behind. And for all the talk about, which I've always said, the power, I think he kind of get overrated at times in boxing. Because yes, Regis had the power to hurt Devin, but you got to be able to land that power. And if you're not able to land that power, then skills pay the bills at the end of the day. But Devin looked bigger, stronger. He hurt Regis a few times. So I think I'm a big Devin Haney supporter. I always joke and say I'm the president of the Devin Haney fan club, but even I didn't see it. I thought he would win 8-4-ish kind of fight. Did not see it going this way. So Nibs, what'd you think about my guy Devin Haney and what he did to Regis Prograis a few weeks ago?
All right. I see Dakota over there. I see him with that cheating grin. Look here. First off, I have to acknowledge the fact that Mr. I Told You So was very incorrect and picking his winner here. And it is official. Catch and Counter is now 100% Team Haney.
Okay.
I'm gonna tell you, I can't pick against the boy ever again. You go in there against a dog and you tamed him. I mean, you shut everything down. There's levels to this game. His boxing ability is levels above just about everybody else. And now that I feel like he's at his more natural weight, I think he's going to be even more dangerous. And we said this off here, 140, 147, Devin Haney is going to be a problem, bro. A problem. We saw that the weight, like we always say this, if the weight carries well, this dude's going to be a problem. I think he's better at 140 than he ever was at 135 because he just naturally looks more like a 140 guy. So, having said that, Regis Prograis, I think his best days are behind him. I think that, stylistically, he can probably still give a couple of guys some problems. But when it comes to the elite level boxers in his division, it's a wrap, bro. If he were to fight a guy like T.O., even if Lomachenko came up, I think he would give Regis, a ton of world of problems that he just couldn't handle. Regis is a flat-footed, stand there and bang guy. You know what I mean? If you get another guy like that in there with him, he's got a shot. Haney is definitely not that, and my hat's off to him. I think that if you didn't have him in your top 5 pound for pound after this fight, you definitely should. You're muted, bro.
I thought it was one of the best performances of the year. We've had this kind of big 5 of performances, one of them being last week with Bam Rodriguez. But, this was one of those kind of star-making performances. And he did it. I mean, listen, I've talked about this at length. Regis only likes to move to the right. So if you can cut that off, it limits his offense a lot. But not a lot of guys can do that. You know what I'm saying? Not a lot of guys can do that because he is athletic and he does hit hard. So if he catches you on the way in, has that fuck your game plan up. But Devin was able to execute that perfectly against kind of the consensus top guy at 140 at the moment. And it was so dominant that, like Inoue, I'm already thinking to the future of him as a welterweight. I'm already thinking about Devin Haney versus Boots Ennis. You know what I'm saying? I'm already thinking about the number of like exciting matchups that he can be a part of in the next decade or so.
Yeah, the thing is, he showed that he's willing to take all those fights too. That he's down to. A lot of guys they'll talk the talk, but once it gets to negotiations, one thing I had said before, some people might not like the way they go about their business. They might not like the way Bill talks, which I've been a big fan of Bill Haney, but everyone's got to respect it. They keep that same energy once it comes to signing those contracts. And a lot of people don't do that. So that's the thing.
He is making meaningful fights, bro. Mm-hmm. He is out here making meaningful fights. We're out here waiting for Tank to fight a guy once a year that we know he's going to beat. And Devin Haney's taking this quantity of top fights. I mean, it's incredible, bro. And I still don't think he beat Lomachenko. And even if he lost that fight, you could still have him as a fighter of the year candidate to me with that performance.
Yeah. And even to me, this shows, because that kind of ties into this next point that I have, is that to me, he gets even more credit for taking that fight. Seeing how big and strong he is now at 140, shows that we knew he wasn't the best at 135, but also shows how much he was sacrificing to make 135. And Regis Saloma, much different stylistic matchups. He had different things to worry about, but it also shows that he was willing to sit there and say, okay, I know I'm probably not at my best, but I'm going to sit there and I'm going to fight Lomachenko. I'm not going to take some random fight. I'm going to fight Lomachenko when I know I should be going up to 140. And he gets all the credit in the world for me for that. And the last thing too is that there's a lot of talk about the term weight bully. Devin rehydrated up to 165, but to me, the weight bully is one of the stupidest terms that we have in boxing. I can see the point where people are saying, but it goes two ways. Yes, that person is bigger in the ring, but yes, that person also has to have an insane amount of discipline and sacrifice to then get down to that weight. And we see that can backfire at times too, like Devin at 135. He wasn't his best in some of those last few fights because of the weight. So a lot of people like to say, oh, it's this guy to get an advantage. Well, if it was easy at the end of the day, everybody would do it. Not everybody does it. So the whole weight bully term I've never understood, because to me, I give those guys a ton of credit for cutting down and being able to make that weight, and then which allows them to then rehydrate.
I think that the only reason I somewhat agree with the term is not because I think it's like a malicious strategic thing, but I think this idea of weighing in 36 hours before the fight is part of what enables these kind of dangerous weight cuts that a lot of these guys do that are taking something off of their performance. And so when you see a guy put on 25, 30 pounds in a 36-hour period, I just don't see how that's benefiting the fight. And I think guys would fight closer to a healthier performance weight if the weigh-ins are on the same day.
I agree, man. You know my stance on this. I've said it a million times. I hate the weight cut. I hate that, you got some guys walking around 150, 160, 170, cutting down to fight in the 140s or lower. Stop that shit, bro. And people think that you can't do it and be successful. And I know we talk a lot about them, but I'm going to say it again. There's a reason why Floyd was so successful. He fought guys who were much bigger than him fight night, right? But he consistently weighed in or around 150. 150. You never saw him more than 155 walking around, even when he didn't have a fight at all, right? Why is that? They say if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready, right? There's a reason why he was so dominant, because he's not cutting a shitload of weight. All he has to do is be him, right? So yeah, you can be heavier than him, right? But you had to drain yourself to make the weight in the first place. Now you've added on this extra weight. It's really not helping you in a lot of cases, right? I think it's more of a detriment to the guy who's actually doing it than the guy you're facing. A lot of times, not everybody's Devin Haney, right? Not everybody can pull that off. So a lot of times how many times have you seen a guy on the scale damn near passing out, right? Because he's trying to make a weight that he should not be fighting at. You know what I mean? And then you see him in the ring and he's got a whole bunch of water weight in his belly because he had to rehydrate to be healthy, not even to make the fucking fight, just to be walking around. So about weight cutting, that's my spiel on that. But I think Devin Haney is special. I said this immediately after the Prograis fight. I said that dude's going to unify the division at 147. Period. I think he's that special. And I think that you see a difference in him from 140 to 135 that's obvious, right? I think he was waiting around for 135 because he wanted Shakur and Tank. And I think he realistically realized that I'm not getting those anytime soon. And he made the move. And it's look, the dude's gonna be a star.
Yeah, and I just want to say, because I agree with everything you guys are saying about the weight, and that's why it's almost a catch, because you do get the advantage, but to drain yourself, it's only sustainable for so long. I mean, Devin Haney's able to do it because he's a fantastic athlete and he's disciplined, and he's 25 years old, but once you're 30 and once you get to 30, 35 years old, you're not able to do that same thing. So I think that he will continue to move up a weight class. Even Gail brought up a good point too, is that most of the public weigh-ins are ceremonial now too. So we're talking like they're weighing in early. So it's not just 24 hours, like you guys are saying, it's 30, 36, almost 40 hours now. And it allows those guys to rehydrate more. But at the end of the day, anybody who is cutting those weight, I give them the credit, because we don't see the behind the scenes of what it takes. And some guys have shared videos and stuff, but just what it takes out of those guys to even do that. Now I give them all the credit for the discipline and those things, even if people look at it as kind of not cheating per se, but getting an advantage, but they have to work to get that advantage. It ain't an easy thing they're doing either.
I think you take years off your life, bro. Doing what it takes to cut it. To me, again, I'm not talking about the guys who are cutting 10, 15 pounds to make their weight. We're talking, we've all seen it. Fernando Vargas was cutting what, 20, 30 pounds to be in his weight class. Cut it out, bro.
And it actually may speak to just how special Haney is. That even with a weight cut that drastic, where he puts on 25 pounds overnight, that he's that impressive and explosive, and that's him moving up in weight. So I think we're maybe even just getting a taste of like what his potential is.
Yeah, that's why, because Nibs said, I've said it on here, but I've always thought that Devin's best weight would be 147. And I even said that when he was at 35, just because I thought 40 is good. You even see with all the greats, Oscar, Floyd, Manny, they kind of use 40 as a pit stop really quick. It's more of a money division now than it ever was, but I think 147, and we'll probably even see him at 154 eventually too, because that's when he'll be really fully grown in. Because you even look at 140, he's already naturally one of the bigger guys at 40, and I think he'll fit in perfectly at 47 and even 54.
And it's perfect timing, right? Look at the timing of this. He's going to have a cup of coffee with 140. Let's be real clear. He might get another, if there's a big money fight to be made at 140, he'll take it, obviously, right? But let's be real clear. He could move up tomorrow to 147 and be a champion. You know what I'm saying? You got the best two in the division pretty much leaving. Spence is already saying he wants to fight at 154. Bud is trying to get out of there to get the big money fights. It's perfect timing to be a welterweight. You know what I mean? And with the talent that he has, if that's what we saw with the move up to 140, I think he gets even better at 147 because he's not even cutting that much weight. Now he's cutting maybe 10, 15 pounds, right? Look, bro, he's a problem for anybody, including Boots, right now at 147.
100%. So we'll move on now. For this one, I just want to mention it real quick because it was the same night and it didn't get as much credit I think as it deserved. Rafael Espinoza, a huge upset over Robeisy Ramirez. And to me, this is what boxing is all about. You see a guy where he started off really good. I had texted you, Dakota, early in the week saying that we didn't know much about him, but I said, like, he's pretty creative with his work, and I view Robeisy high, so I thought he would win, but I thought it would be tough, and boy, was it tough. Even for Espinoza, man, in round 5 when he went down, it looked like Robeisy was going to take over. But just
this was a grueling fight, bro.
Yeah, and the will he had to be able to battle back and then put Robeisy down in the 12th round, which ended up with the scorecards. I thought he should have won anyways, but he needed those knockdowns in the end in the rally to win the last round. So we don't have to spend too much time on it. I did want to mention it though, because it was a hell of a performance. It's what boxing is all about. A guy who virtually went from being unknown is now a world champion. And those are the kind of things that we always love to see in the sport.
That was an incredible performance. It's one of the best fights of the year. A brutal, grueling matchup. And Espinoza is, that's just seizing the opportunity, man, because he's taking on a guy who's versatile, but he used his height, he used his size. He weathered some fucking brutal rounds where he was getting dropped and taking a lot of punishment and was able to grind out honestly what wound up being a spectacular win.
It had everything you want in boxing, bro. It was the Rocky story.
It was so great. It was so great that it doesn't even diminish how I feel about Robeisy.
No.
He was just that impressive that even when, he was basically knocked out, bro, and he figured it out.
Most refs would have stopped that, and I wouldn't even, if they had stopped that fight in the 5th round, I wouldn't have blamed them. It seemed like they probably should have stopped it. And like you said, this isn't that Robeisy. You see some people saying, "Oh, maybe Robeisy was never the guy." I don't think it's that. I just think, no, we just found another guy who kind of like Navarrete did, because Navarrete was kind of the same thing as Espinoza. It wasn't a huge name and then burst on the scene. I think we're seeing this same thing where he's going to stick around and be a name for time to come too. We just added another guy in the mix.
I agree.
And people also need to remember, right? When you're the man, you're getting everybody's best. It's everybody's Super Bowl when they fight you. When you're Robeisy Ramirez, it's Super Bowl every time out the gate. When you're Tank Davis, it's Super Bowl every time out the gate. So you're getting everybody's A game, bro. So even if this guy loses his next fight, that performance against Rubisi, he's never doing that again. You can't, because I mean, that's a once in a lifetime performance, bro. That's some shit you pull out of your ass, literally. So, and shit, if it isn't fight of the year, it's up there. It is up there. I love it.
Right.
I love it. It's everything we love about boxing.
Exactly. You said definitely in the conversation for fight of the year. Without that, we'll have our awards pretty soon, and that will at least get an honorable mention to say the least. But we'll move on now to a card that was last Friday night. We were going to do a preview on it, then the times didn't align for it. But I'll let Dakota kind of take the lead on this one because he's been in the gym with Shadasia Green a lot. We're all big supporters, but he's the one who knows her on a personal level. So kind of just talk about just first of all the moment for her. I know she was excited to get this big fight. Just your journey with her, and then also how you thought the fight played out also with Franchon Cruz.
Well, I guess just to give a little bit of a backdrop on her and how I met her. We met because I was covering the Serrano Cruz card at the Garden a while back. I think that was in February or January. Met Shadasia, didn't even really get an interview. We just sort of met, you know what I mean? And then you're meeting in a crowd of people and there's cameras everywhere. Sometimes you just say what's up to people, you know what I mean? You're not trying to get something out of everybody. And I wound up, that was the day that I interviewed Franchon. So I met them both that day, funny enough. But after that, when I saw her at the fight, man, I just knew there was something a little different. I just, you have those moments where you see a fighter that you've never heard of before, and you go like, huh, that's worth keeping track of. The two that have always come to mind for me when they catch you off guard was Golovkin caught me off guard, and Bam Rodriguez caught me off guard, and Shadasia Green caught me off guard. So I had her on the podcast, wound up getting in the gym with her and shooting episode 1 of The Fight Life. And when I met her, she was the mandatory for Franchon. So literally from the day that I met Shadasia, she's been thinking about this fight, which may have been a factor in the fight itself, right? But she wins her next fight. Cruz Dezarn loses to Savannah Marshall, so the belts change hands, but Savannah's hurt. So there's a gray area about what's going to be next for Deja, and that was when we shot episode 2. And then by the time we were done shooting, that fight was signed with Cruz Dezarn, and it was very exciting. And I know that I know how much it meant to her, especially having seen how hard she works. There was also some things that went on behind the scenes. Maybe we'll get to talk about those one day, but this was an incredible opportunity. And it just wasn't her best performance. I think she'll be the first one to tell you that. So I think that it's a 2-layered conversation. It wasn't Shadasia's best night. I also think that the judges having an 8-2 and 7-3 for Cruz Dezarn is not really reality. I don't think that doesn't compute for me. And I knew I was watching it with a certain amount of bias, but when I'm scoring a fight, I'm really trying to just score the fight. I thought Shadasia landed the cleaner shots and she edged it. And I'm sure she's going to get another opportunity again. It would have been nice if this was the moment where, after all this waiting and being the number 1 contender and waiting your turn and doing things the right way, that she could have gotten the decision. But that's not how it played out, unfortunately. So on to the next one.
I got a question, bro. And I don't know. It seems like recently, I guess referees are much more likely to let you have a waltz in the ring than they used to, because there's a shitload of holding going on in both men's and women's boxing that they just didn't allow. Up till recently, really. Do you think that if that would have been nipped in the bud, right? Like the Katie Taylor fight, you think if they nip that in the bud, that goes a different way?
There's no doubt it changes the dynamic of the fight, right? Because it makes it now so that Franchon has to think before she immediately smothers, or she immediately gets an arm up under Shadasia's arm, or she does something.
She get a point. Like should have got a point for
Right. I think if something had made her start second guess herself, I think the fight would have been different. Any of the sparring that I kind of saw in the gym, everybody there at today's gym boxes real clean. Everybody, it's like, she's sparring with Ian Green. He's a smart boxer. He fights from the outside. They're not doing real clinchy, dirty work in the gym. So I don't know how familiar or expected that was for her to just have this like 200-pound girl just laying on top of her the whole time with no warning whatsoever. And then the minute, she gets a glove in her forearm, she's almost getting the point taken off. So it felt like, there was just a couple of different things kind of working against her. And this is separate from the performance that I don't think were fair. I don't think that a lot of other fighters, like you said, Nibs, I think that being able to do that amount of holding, there's no way that it can't impact the fight. And she killed half the round of almost every round, just sort of pushing and shoving. Did it effectively stunt Shadeja's offense? Totally. But it's not particularly clean boxing either. So I don't know how to feel about it.
No, and that's the point, because that's what I had said to you when we had talked after the fight. It's just the amount of time, some rounds, which basically half the round was the holding in. For Franchon, it's not that that's not a smart move for Franchon. Style-wise, I think that was the way that she was going to win the fight. So she executed to her game plan what she had to do to win the fight. To us, I think what we're saying is that it's on the ref to have more of a cleaner fight and to have her kind of go deeper into her bag and do other certain things. Because for Franchon, yeah, like I've always said, even with other fighters, if a ref's going to allow you to do something, you do it until you're told not to, but it's also on the ref to be able to kind of just set that precedent and not allow those things to continue to happen either.
Which he didn't. He never set any kind of precedent other than break clean, step back. And so if the only consequence is break clean, step back, yeah, I'm going to smother the best puncher in women's boxing and make sure that she can't get her distance.
Yeah.
And some of that was definitely on Deja to kind of establish her jab a little more. I just think that when you're not sure what the terms of the fight are and the other fighters playing by a different set of rules, it makes it hard,
100%.
Yeah, man, you guys are really politically correct. I'm going to say that fight was some bullshit, just like I did with the Katie Taylor fight. Look.
Tonight, I need you to say it, bro.
There we go.
Look, I thought Shadeja Green won the fight. I did. I thought she won a close fight. Let me be very clear. I'm not sitting up here saying she went in there and waxed Discern and got cheated. Not saying that at all. As a matter of fact, if you had Franchon winning by a close decision, I'm probably not arguing with you too much. You know what I'm saying? But like Dakota said, we're talking 98-92 and 97-93 twice. That didn't happen on either side of the ball, right? This was a one-round fight. Either way, in my opinion, I think that, but I think even with Shadeja being neutralized by the holding, right? I think she did more than Franchon did when they weren't waltzing around the ring. And I think if you're scoring it for Franchon because you consider her holding being a win for her, then yeah, I guess you can give her that.
Or you're just impressed that she's being competitive, which I don't think that. I think that was part of it too, where it's like I think people really did think that a lot of people thought Shadeja was going to dominate, which might have been a dumb thing to think because the experience gap. Franchon's only lost to literally like the best female fighters of all time. So I think that was an unfair expectation. But just because she's able to keep around closer, be competitive. I mean, even just look at the last 4 rounds, all the clean shots were Shadeja. So, I just can't see how 8 rounds of that fight you're giving to Franchon. It's not reality, bro. And to be honest, we're all on this boxing shit, right? I've yet to see somebody emphatically be like, nah, Franchon won. Nobody's out here fucking waving that flag either. So to me, it wasn't a great decision. It wasn't a great performance, but it was a bad decision, and it was a tough set of circumstances, to get around.
And like you said, because I had said to you, it had kind of the feel of maybe I could have seen a draw, or with Franchon, I could have seen her getting the edge. So if it was a split majority decision or like a 6-4 kind of fight, I think it would be easier for you to kind of deal with it. But just because the scorecards are what they are, we're saying even her late rally in the end, they didn't even put much stock into that, or they had her so far behind that it didn't even matter. So like we were saying, even if you make it a 12-round fight, yes, it would be a different fight, but on those scorecards, it wouldn't have mattered anyways, those extra 2 rounds.
Yeah. I hope that I hope that both of them can benefit from it. I hope that Franchon can use that as a legacy defining win, because that really is what it is. It's a fantastic win to have on your resume. And I think for Shadeja, it's a crash course in experience. It's a crash course in just being around different styles and being around different types of physicality. And a loss doesn't define you.
And Gail, I'm not arguing with you. Like I said, if you feel like Franchon won that fight, I'm not arguing with you at all. I just don't think it was as wide as a decision as what they had on there. I agree, Dakota. 100%. Shadeja wasn't on her shit. And I think if she is on her shit, she wins pretty handily. But Franchon, to her credit, she used what they were letting her use, bro. And it's just like I can say sour grapes about the Katie Taylor win. Katie Taylor used what they were letting her use to win a fight, bro. And we all know if any of us we get into a fight, we win in by any means necessary.
Yep.
So look, Franchon did that. She won by any means necessary. And I think that, yes, again, I'm not arguing with you if you feel Franchon won, but 98, 92.
We just got to be dealing in reality. Like close fights are fine.
What were you watching, bro?
Close fights, we're gonna have differences of opinions as well in a close fight, but we have to all be watching reality. And that was the frustrating part for me, having spent time in that camp. It was just like that reminder that you can kind of do everything the right way and just not have judges that are looking at reality.
Yeah, and then the last thing
I want to say something really quick to people who are watching, right? I've seen really close fights where it was 98, 92. They were just really close rounds and somebody else. This wasn't that. This was a close fight where both of these women won at least half the rounds. Like that's what we're getting at. You could have had this a draw or a win one way or the other, and I'm not arguing with you at all. But to say one person, no matter who you had winning, won 98, 92 to me is an atrocity.
Yeah, and that's why I do want to give Franchon credit at the end of the day, because even for all the things we're saying is that basically, like Gail said, she took advantage of everything. We always say, even when I've been in the gym, any of us, we've all been in the gym, so we know that you're taught use every advantage you can get. If you can kind of toe the line a bit and they're not going to tell you of it, you got to take full advantage of it. And I think that she knew in that situation, she knew what she was up against with Shadeja. We know she's a great fighter. They've had experience with it. She knew how good Shadeja was too, so she knew that she needed to do that.
They've been in the ring together. They know each other already. You know what I mean? That's part of why it looked so familiar to Franchon was it was just like, I know what she doesn't like.
Yeah. And that's why all of our gripes are with more the referee and the judging and not with Franchon, just because at the end of the day, which we all agree with too, is that she did what she had to do. And I don't want people to kind of miss that and say, oh, we're just taking Shadeja's side. We give Franchon all the credit. The gripe is not with her at all, because she did what she had to do to win. So I want to get that clear for sure.
Yeah. And I want to ask you, Dakota, this, because you're again the closest of all three of us to this. What would you like to see happen from here for both ladies?
I would like to see Franchon get a rematch with Savannah Marshall. I think the first one was really compelling. She's got a belt again. I feel like she kind of deserves another big fight after getting this kind of an upset win. For Shadeja, I think that there are some interesting fights for her, but what I want to see, just personally, what I want to see is I want to see her get into a rhythm again. I want to see the bounce in her legs. I want to see the athleticism. I know everyone knows how hard she hits, but seeing what her athletic abilities are in the gym, regardless of who the fight is, I think Raquel Miller would be an interesting opponent, but regardless of who it is, I just want to, I want to see that be the focal point.
I fucks with it, man. You know what? I wouldn't be opposed. This would be one of those instances where I wouldn't be opposed to them running it back.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest with you,
The problem that, and I would
it's not
trust me, I would love to see it too. Trust me, I would love to see it too. I'm just worried that it was kind of a stinker, and people just won't be that interested, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would love to see it. But I think that I'm with you. Whatever Shadeja does next, she needs to just get back to doing what she does best, and um, I would love for that holding shit to not be a thing in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Please, for the love of God.
It was just excessive, and it's a part of the sport, right? Sometimes you just get wrapped up. That's a part of boxing to some extent, but it was excessive. I've yet to talk to anybody who didn't view it as somewhat excessive.
Yeah, no, and then the thing with Shadeja is she is going to be back too. She'll be back better than ever. I think these learning experiences will make her an even better fighter. We already knew she was a great fighter, but the tools she's going to get from learning about and how this fight went, I think it's going to make her even better. And when she's back in the big stage again, she's going to be that much more prepared for it. And I think that we're going to see the best version of Shadeja Green coming up.
This
real
was
soon.
such a big jump up in class. I don't think people really even understand, because a lot of these divisions are not that deep. So it's like I'm looking at BoxRec, and Olivia Curry, her previous opponent, is number 5, and Franchon is number 2. But I don't think people understand how big of a jump that can be in a weight class that's not real stacked up,
Yeah.
So
the talent level comparative to be on a stacked men's division could be like fighting the number 30 versus fighting the number 2, for example. Like you're saying, just the depth. At the highest level, there are fantastic women's fighters. They just don't have the overall depth that the men's side does. And that speaks
And at the end of the day, sometimes, especially if you're as good as Shadeja, you just got to get tossed in the deep end. And she took an L, and now you learn how to swim.
Yeah, I think losing to Franchon isn't a loss, in my opinion. Yeah, it's a loss on your record, right, on your ledger. But I think depending on how you look at it, this can be a win, because you can, the things you can learn. You got one of the best female boxers on your ledger, right? And you went 10 rounds, 10 competitive rounds. It's not like you got smoked. You know what I mean? Even though the scorecards are bullshit.
They didn't even really take any clean shots.
Right. She could probably fight next week if she really wanted to. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, it's like if you fight Clarissa Shields and take an L, bro. It's not the end of your career. And female boxing, I think in male boxing we hold a little bit too much of the wins losses, but I think a loss against someone who's top 10 level talent. Okay, you keep it pushing, you get the next fight, and I think she's got options. I would just say that I think Shadeja Green is still a good name in boxing, in female boxing.
That's a fact. And she'll be in the mix 100%. So not sure next time we're going to be on. So we do have 2 more things. We'll run through those really quick because I think these both deserve mention. The first one is Bam Rodriguez. I mean, man, what a performance. I thought he was going to win, but I was someone who viewed Sonny Edwards really high too. And just, man, what Bam was able to do to him. Now talk about a pound for pound level performance. Bam shows that he's the kind of guy who gets up for the big fights too. We've seen he had the broken jaw in his last fight. He looked kind of flat the fight before, but when he's in on the biggest stage, he turns up the best he does. One thing that I want to say real quick, and then I'll pass it to you guys, is that a lot of people saying that Sonny Edwards made a tactical error in this fight, kind of the way he fought. But to me, I don't think he made that choice. I think Bam made that choice for him. The way that Bam's able to cut off the ring, the way Bam's able to use angles, the way he was shooting that jab out there. We talked about Golovkin earlier, like a Golovkin level type sharp jab he was shooting out at him, rocking Sonny's head back. Sonny even said after the fight, hey, if I had moved around, it just would have been worse for me. So I just think that people are kind of saying, oh, Sonny didn't approach the fight right. No, I think he did. I think Bam made it turn into his fight. It shows how special Bam is. Bam is good. He's got the long reach from range. He's uses short shots on the inside with his angles too. So just special pound for pound fighter. But real quick, what did you guys think about Bam Rodriguez? Because I didn't want to end the show without talking about that real quick because, man, all the talent in the world that kid has.
That was such an incredible performance, bro. Like that was like Haney and Prograis for me. It was that kind of performance. It was just, it was the first time, again, it's kind of the first time we're in with somebody where we view it as more of a 50-50 type fight. As far as saying that, Edwards had a tactical error, I do think he made a choice, right? He made a choice that he was going to try to hold his ground a little more. And that's kind of a pick your poison. If he had just kept it moving, he might have killed some of Bam's offense, but I think it would have been difficult for him to land anything meaningful or get any kind of respect. So then if he stands in the pocket, he puts himself at more risk, which is what happened. That's a pick your poison. I don't know if you could call that a strategic error when you're fighting somebody that special. Clearly, Edwards is a fantastic fighter, and Bam just kind of had his number in every category. You know, it was very special.
Yeah. Nibs, what do you think about Bam Rodriguez?
I think Sonny Edwards' technical mistake was taking the fight in the first fucking place. I think Bam Rodriguez was going to do that regardless of what, you know, it didn't matter what Sonny's game plan was. I think the result was going to be the same. And again, it just proves that you can have a couple bad fights or not look too good, you know what I mean? And it doesn't mean you're not this elite level talent. You know what I mean? A lot of people we just talked about it. Devin Haney was like, oh, well, he didn't look that good against Lomachenko. He didn't, he was fighting Kambosos, who's a bum, yada, yada, yada. Then he gets in with program and he shuts everybody the fuck up. I think Bam just did that with Sonny Edwards. It's like, oh, you want to talk all this shit about my last couple of performances not being, here? Okay, watch this. Now what you got to say? You know what I mean? Shut the fuck up. He went in there and he proved to everybody who the fuck he really is. Hey man, get that dude his check. Go on about his business. And here's the thing. If you watch that fight and you think you can beat Bam Rodriguez, good luck.
I'll be honest, it was so compelling. Like, we just spent all this time talking about Inoue fighting bigger guys, but this is kind of the guy that I want to see Inoue fight. I don't know what weight they do that or when they do it, but that to me is like the most compelling fight of lower weights.
That's the problem for me, is I think that's the reverse side of it, where that would be maybe too much for Bam. Like, eventually, as you said, maybe he grows it
Same height.
those weights, but yeah, and he's got the reach for it and stuff too. So
same height.
Definitely, especially whenever people see two guys with the lower weight classes, even if they're not the same exact weight, you kind of group them in together. So I think the Estrada, Chocolatito, Ioka, Nakatani, I mean, he's got a ton of big fights out there. And I want to give Sonny Edwards his credit real quick too, because he was the Ring Magazine #1 guy in the division coming in. I still think he would probably beat Julio Cesar Martinez in to lock in if he's at it. And that dude had his orbital bone broken in round 2, kept fighting. And the fact that he even got up from that knockdown in round 9, you see guys saying, like, I saw some people even saying that he quit in that fight. And if you think he quit in that fight, bro, you need to find a new sport at the end of the day, because that dude did everything he could have done until there was no chance of winning. And so I just want to give him credit for that, because I've seen some people call him a quitter, this and that. But from the eye in round 2, from getting up from that knockdown in round 9, and like I said, I think he beats anybody else till at 112. And that's
he's giving Martinez a boxing lesson, bro.
That's what I'm saying.
He's giving Martinez a boxing lesson. This is about how good Bam is, bro.
100%.
Yeah, it would be bad business for Bam to fight anyway. As much love as I just gave him, it would be bad business for him to fight anyway. Plus, I think Inoue's past. I mean, I don't think he's going back. I think he's going forward. So, I mean,
I don't think it's realistic, but when I think about who are the two guys that are just way more special than everyone else, like them at 118 is just sort of like a fantasy fight to me.
Yeah. Hey, I will say, throw my guy Junto Nakatani in the mix a little bit too. I think that's the big fight. And I think for him, that is the fight that I think the Inoue one, like you said, we'd love it. It's more far-fetched. I think the Nakatani Bam fight is a big fight, because to me, that's still about, I love Bam, and I think Bam is a top 10 pound for pound guy. I think that's a 50-50 fight. I still think Junto has a hell of a shot in that fight too. So I think that's the dream fight, I think, for those two guys. And that's a realistic one too.
There's Jack, we're going to talk about your man, Chris.
Yes, sir. I was going to say, we'll get into that now real quick. So here we go. So we had the final Showtime broadcast. I mean, David Morrell, we all know how special he is. Sena Agbeko is a tough fighter, but we just saw levels in that fight. Morrell's a bad man. But if you guys want to touch on that, you guys can touch on that. But I will also bring in what I had to say. So I got to say it. I mean, I did think Chris Colbert beat Ryo in the first fight. I thought it was 95-94. I thought it was really close, but I thought he was able to do some things when he started to back up Ryo later in the fight. And I thought he could maybe use some of those things in a rematch. But hell, like Nib said earlier, he was wrong, but I was dead wrong on this one too. The fight kind of played out like the first fight a bit early, but I mean, the size and power was just too much. Like Ray said, Ryo started really ripping that body, and he did not let Colbert off the hook. So I want to give Ryo credit for this one because I thought Colbert had still a chance in the second fight. I thought he won the first fight, but if that's not one hell of a way to cap off a rivalry or anything like that, there's not really a better way to do it. And Ryo got the job done.
Look here, man. Your boy got lucky as fuck first time around. There is zero questions as to which one.
Real quick, I'm gonna let you cook, but everyone keeps saying Colbert's my boy as if I'm like a huge fan of him. Like, I've literally been on the record trashing his comments that he's made to Jamel Herring. He's made crazy comments to other guys. So yes, I thought he won the first fight. Yes, I thought he had a chance to win in the second fight, but I'm no president of the Chris Colbert fan club or nothing like that. I respected his performance in the first fight, but you can keep going. But I just want to throw that out there a little bit too.
Right. I feel like you walking that back a little bit, but you know what I'm saying. We're gonna let it roll. We're gonna let it roll. But no, man. Look, I've never been a big Chris Colbert fan. I'm not gonna pull any punches about it. I'm not gonna try to say it. See Jack running away. He don't even want to talk about it.
Here we go. I'm here.
But look, man. I thought Colbert lost that first fight. I thought Ryo missed an opportunity early when he had him. I mean, I thought he was out cold on his feet. You know what I mean? I think they should have stopped the fight. But I think Ryan, maybe he had that adrenaline dump he didn't really take advantage of where he had Chris in the first fight, kind of let him stick around a little bit longer and lost on the cards, even though I still think he won. When they signed for the rematch, I said this boy he's about to hurt Chris Colbert bad. You know what I mean? Because they talked a lot of shit to each other, and he's going to do. I didn't know which round it was going to happen in, but I knew it was coming. And Chris Colbert, for all the shit he talks, he's not an elite level fighter. It's just, in my opinion, he's not. He's a really good gatekeeper. Like that's what he is. He's a really good gatekeeper who got a lot of pub and a team behind him, and that is it. He's one of those guys, right? We talk about got some money behind him, and people expected him to be this great big deal. He's not really that great big deal. You know what I mean? And Ryo proved it. I'm glad he got his ass whipped. Maybe, he's talking about wanting to run it back. Please don't. Please don't. This is the same dude who thought he wanted to fight with Tank. Get out of here with that garbage. Go ahead, Dakota. I'm sorry.
I wish I had something to contribute, but we talked about this before we went on air. I was very invested in the Bam Rodriguez Sonny Edwards fight. I didn't get to watch the last telecast, and Showtime and PBC have made no effort to make that replayable for the fans that want to see it. So haven't been able to see any of it. Talk to Al Hammond.
Yeah, that's another thing for a whole nother conversation we need to get into. But yeah, I'll say this, man. Chris Colbert, if he's to be relevant ever again, he needs to go back to the drawing board, and he needs to work on the things that he's not good at. I say this all the time. Fall in love with the shit you do wrong or do bad or do poorly, because what you do well, you're already going to do that anyway.
And start by admitting that you don't do them well.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big one. Start with understanding that this is my shortcoming. You know what I mean?
And work your ass off on that, because if you train to the things you do poorly, right, you can only get better at them. If you're already doing something really good, you're going to do that anyway, naturally, in your training, right? Train to the shit that you suck at. What can it hurt you?
Yeah, and even to B. Brown's point there is I think that Colbert, I think clearly he's not a 135-pounder either. I think he's got to go back down to 130. Probably should have done it after the first Ryo fight. I think his ego got a lot of people saying that he lost the fight. I think egged him on into taking the rematch. But at this point, if he's got to go back down to 130, not that it's going to be easy down there. There's a lot of contenders down there. But I think if he's going to do anything, if he's going to kind of make it and be the guy that he wants to be, it's definitely not going to be at 135 pounds either.
He's food either way. he's food for the top guys at 130. I mean, he shouldn't even be fighting at 135. Let's just be clear. He got nothing for them, but he's food for the guys at 132. I mean, if you really want to put him up against those guys, okay, so they can get a bag. All right, I have no problem with it. But let's be real clear. Until he gets his shit together and realizes who he really is as a fighter, it's going to be more of the same.
Yeah, Blake said
you can't stop trying to bang with people you can't bang with.
And like you said, it comes down to accountability. I think if he's able to realize those things and look in the mirror, I do think he could be successful at 130. Maybe not a pound for pound guy, but could he pick up a vacant belt at some point if it comes open? I do think he still has the skills. I think he's got to be careful in how he's matched, especially going forward now. But it definitely will be interesting to see how it plays out. But the last thing I want to mention, just because Showtime, it was Showtime's last card. So Nibs, I'll let you go first in Dakota because I'll let you think about it. But if you guys had to give one fight for your favorite fight that was on Showtime, what do you guys think that it would be and why? Or Nibs, I can give mine if you're going to kind of think about it for a second. Either way.
All of the Mike Tyson fights.
There we go. Easy enough.
I mean,
I cheated, but
yep. And I think Dakota's going to give the answer that I think, but let me hear what he's got too.
The easy answer for me is Castillo and Corrales. I mean, that was just such a special moment, and it was, I would say, relatively early in my boxing fandom that I saw a fight organically live, and I remember that shit just absolutely blowing my fucking mind. And maintains itself, I think, as one of the greatest fights of all time.
Yeah, but I'm going to give, because that would be the easy one for me. But I'm going to give a shout for a different one, too. Is when I think it was on Tape Delay. It was one of Showtime's first fights. And I get the bias being from Brockton, Massachusetts also. And very underrated fight, too. But Marvin Hagler and John Mugabe. Just a great, great fight. Mugabe is the guy who never really got the credit he deserved because he took that fight and was never the same after that. You can argue Hagler was never the same after that fight either. But to me, I think that's the fight that I would pick. Just that kind of like Corrales Castillo. This one has a bit bias, and I knew one of you guys would probably pick that one, so I wanted to bring this up too. But just like that one had everything that you want in a fight, going back and forth, and just a hell of a fight. But so I think that those are a few other fights out there. Let me try to think about a fight that I saw on Showtime. Even just because I've only been in the last few years, if I had to think of a Nibs, you can bring that up as I think of one that I've watched live in Showtime. You can go real quick though.
So. I say all the Mike Tyson fights just because, I'm a huge Mike Tyson fan, right? Like, that's the, I can watch that dude fight in my backyard. You know what I'm saying? But a fight that I watched like live was the Nigel Benn and McClellan fight. That was a big one for me. And it was because, we share the same name. You know what I'm saying? So you don't get a lot of Nigels in boxing. But, it was special, bro. So, I would say that one for me is probably my favorite non-Tyson fight on Showtime. For me, look, the Diego Corrales Castillo fight, I don't even put that on the show. That's over here somewhere. That's rarefied air, bro. Like, and I'm not even trying to cop out. Like, to me, Dig, you take Diego and Castillo, you take Gotti Ward, you know what I mean? You take those kind of fights, you put them somewhere else. Like they get their own whole section of greatest of all times. You know what I'm saying? For me, that's just my opinion. I think that I think you're disrespectful by just pigeonholing them to Showtime. So that's the only reason I'm not mentioning them because, like you said, it is the easy answer. But I think they get a whole nother. I mean, look, that should to me, that's the best fight of all time that I've seen. Period. Fight me.
I think it's also worth noting that Showtime hosted the rivalry between Israel Vasquez and Rafael Marquez, which wound up being one of the all-time great rivalries. Also, one of the rare rivalries that got split 2-2. And those were really special fights. I think one other fight for me that I would mention as a standout for me was Jarrett Hurd and Erislandy Lara, because I just didn't expect it to be such a crazy fight. And it wound up being, I would say, one of my 10 favorite fights ever to watch because Hurd really forced Lara into this physical fight. Hurd was never the same after that shit, man. I mean, that was the night that was kind of the last night he had it all. He left it all in the ring that night. So that was just a very special matchup in context.
Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder won.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That was, I mean, shit. Showtime's been in their bag, bro.
It's sad, and I think that ultimately it is the end of a certain era of boxing. They've sort of been the last thing in existence that represented the older eras of boxing. I think that with them leaving is officially over, but they did a great job for almost 40 years of being kind of everybody's second choice, and HBO was such a great first choice that for them to even be a second choice, I think showed how what a great job they did.
We got Bean bringing up Sweet Pea and Chavez in there.
Oh,
yep. And I got two newer fights, not that they're on that level, but two fights that intrigued me in two kind of different ways. One of them is Tank and Barrios. I thought that was a really, really good fight. I thought that just the ebbs and flows of Tank being behind and then him coming back to win. And I know you guys are both like this one, but another one from earlier this year was it would be Kenny Sims and Batir Akhmedov, honestly. Just another really good, a fight that doesn't get mentioned, so I wanted to bring that one up too. But honestly, that might be the best fight that I've seen since I've been on Showtime. The Tank one for the ebbs and flows of him slowly coming back, but Kenny Sims and Batir Akhmedov, I wanted to give a shout out for that one too, 100%.
Bro, so to the Tank fight, you saw the difference when Floyd came over there and told him, "Hey, you're down."
Mm-hmm.
He was like, "What?" And then you see this switch, right? You that's rare. There are rare fighters that can be like, "Oh, wait, hold on," hold my beer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the kid, man, bro, you talking dirty right now, bro. With the Sims fight, baby. Yeah,
Yeah, I had to dig deep in my back for that one. I had to sit and think. So I was like, I didn't think about that, but I wanted to bring at least one gem in there. So I figured that was a decent.
I see what you're doing, Jack, and I like it. I like it. I don't like it that I didn't think of it, but I like it.
Yeah. You can still. It's all good. We'll all take credit for that one. But Larry Listen saying fight of the year, Espinosa Ramirez, fighter of the year. Undisputed. I think he's got good arguments for both of those. But it's been a long show in here. We had to fit 2 weeks into one, so that's why we're gonna try to get back to the 1 hour format. I think funny we kind of did that because we did 2 shows in one show today. We got it done. We got big fights this week. We're gonna have end of the year awards and all those things coming up. But
and as always, shout out to everybody in the chat. Much appreciated everybody participating in our shows. As always, it keeps us moving and keeps us excited, man.
No, 100%. And if they know, the ones who have watched the Nibs, they know how we always end the show. So the floor is yours at this point. I'm done at this point. Dakota, I think, is wrapped up. Anything else he wants to say, but we'll let you wrap things up as we always do too.
For every fight that we've just talked about, the stars that you love to watch, they all started on a platform that was damn near free, and it was a local boxing event. Dakota and Jack are experts in the field. They can tell you some of the best cards you'll ever see are the ones that you'll never see on TV, on streaming platforms. You won't even hear about them unless you were there, right? And you will always get your money's worth supporting local events. Not only are you supporting the local fighters who need that love and support, to not even just financial, just people showing up, bro. You don't understand what it means for especially a local guy to have his town, his people show up and root their name
and just pay attention, just paying attention,
right? Because support, I can't tell you, in the sport of boxing, support from your local community goes way more than any $1 million check we'll ever get. Those guys are going to remember that shit no matter how punchy they get, right? Mickey Ward talks about it all the time. But again, just to wrap this up, man, every guy that we mentioned, even Floyd, had to start somewhere, right? Support your local guys. You're not only supporting the boxers, but you're supporting the local economy, and you're helping everybody. So get out there. There are plenty of avenues to find local fights. Google is a wonderful thing. It really is. You'd be amazed how many local fights you can find on ESPN's chart. For those who don't know Dan Rayfield, he used to work for ESPN. He puts out a full list of fights, on a weekly basis. You can go find them there. There are plenty of ways to find it. get out there, support those guys, and make sure that, at the end of the day, you're not just paying for the big money fights. You're paying for the guys that are trying to make big money and feed their families.
Well said, brother.
Couldn't have said it any better, and that's why I don't say it, because I let Nip say it. But as Bean said, happy holidays to everyone, and as Nip said, just support your local boxing. I mean, I want to give Lukey credit too. I'm not sure if he's watching, but he announced his club fight of the year as Michael Hayne and Harry Gigliotti, a fight that I got to see in person. Dakota knows Harry. I know Mike. I know both guys, but just an unbelievable fight. So those are the kind of things we're talking about. Like if that fight was on an ESPN platform, that fight would be talked about as a fight of the year. Unfortunately, it's not, but those are the guys who deserve the credit. They deserve the support, because those guys will be back on TV too. And if you find out about them now, you're not going to be surprised when they do big things on TV. Like Nip said, all these fighters, eventually they all start from somewhere. So support all those guys. Happy holidays to everybody, no matter what you celebrate. And we will be back. Not sure exactly when. We got to figure it out. But end of the award show and all those things will be soon. Until then, though, peace out, everyone. Enjoy the fight. Salute to everyone for tuning in. We will
really quick.